For all of you who are writing exam this year, that the prelims upcoming in May, budget becomes extremely important. Budget is more important from prelims perspective and also important from mains perspective, because along with the analysis, there are a lot of topics from where it can generate a lot of MCQs that have been there. We are not trying to understand budget from a common man's point of view. We are not trying to understand budget to say that ಇದರಿಂದ ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಯ್ತು, ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಒಳ್ಳೇದಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇವ್ರಿಗೇನ್ ಸಿಕ್ತು, ಇವ್ರಿಗೇನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಜನರಲಿ ನಾವು ಮನೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಯಾವ ಬೆಲೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತು, ಯಾವ ಬೆಲೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಯ್ತು, ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. The larger idea of today's session is to ensure any student who is giving up the competitive exams, ಬಜೆಟ್ ಪ್ರತಿ ಬಾರಿ ಕೇವಲ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ವಿಷಯವಾಗಿ ಉಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳಲ್ಲ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಕೂಡ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತಲಿನ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. The term budget comes from this French term called baguette, which in English goes on to become budget, and in simple, the meaning of that term is a leather bag. So she said, let's do away with this colonial legacy. And she came up with a larger idea. ಅವರು ಈ ಒಂದು ಲೆದರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸೂಟ್ಕೇಸ್ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಭಾರತೀಯತೆಯನ್ನ ಎತ್ತಿಡಿಯೋಣ, ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಚರ್ನ ಎತ್ತಿಡಿಯೋಣ ಅನ್ನೋ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಾಹಿ ಖಾತಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ತರ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಅವರ ಪ್ರಕಾರ, ಅಥವಾ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಇನ್ ಪರ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್, ಬಾಹಿ ಖಾತಾ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಕ್ಲೋತ್ ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ವೇರ್ ಯು ರ್ಯಾಪ್ ಅಪ್ ದಿ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್. So this is something that she started when she presented her first budget as the first full-time woman finance minister. The first budget in India was presented by none other than R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. The most interesting thing that all of you should know is ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪದವನ್ನ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. So our constitution does not have the term called budget. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ what is it mentioned as? It is mentioned as this idea called annual financial statement. Okay, so Article 112 of the Constitution talks about what is called annual financial statement, and illi budget annod pada mention agila. 25-26 budget alli we are giving the upcoming year's budget estimates. So you see this is budget estimates, the previous year's revised estimates. So 2024-25 revised estimates. ಈ ಬಾರಿ 2 ವರ್ಷದ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಸನ್ ಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗಲಿ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್, ಅದ್ರ ಹಿಂದಿನ ವರ್ಷದ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ 3 ವರ್ಷದ ಸಮಗ್ರ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಯರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾಗ ಆ ವರ್ಷ ಆ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಮಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದಿನ 5 ವರ್ಷ ಅಥವಾ 3 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಕಾಲಾವಕಾಶ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಉಳಿದಂತಹ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ, ಉಳಿದಂತಹ ಸಮಯಕ್ಕೆ ತರುವಂತಹ ಮಧ್ಯಂತರ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ನಾವು ಇಂಟರಿಮ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. Every time there's been an innovation, from the Bahi Khata, doing away with the colonial legacy, paperless budgets that have come across, different saris, each talking about the rich culture and heritage of India. Sri Gurujada Appa Rao, now Tirukural and Tiruvalluvar's idea has been continuously there. This year also it has been there, but this is a special mention. So from an art and culture perspective, basic idea about this great man has to be known. You never know, questions can come. Viksit Bharat is about a developed India, and that has multiple challenges, multiple opportunities. India has a large dependency on agriculture. Close to 50% of the population is still dependent. How we can use that as a strength area? How India can become the food basket of the world? That is also that's been spoken about. The financial sector. If the wheels of the economy has to work very well, the wheels have to be sufficiently greased. ಅಲ್ವಾ? ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಗಾಡಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಗ್ರೀಸ್, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಪಥವನ್ನ ಸರಿದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ. 2 years back we talked about the idea of Shri Anna. So this about ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳು ಅಂತ ನಾವೇನು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಶ್ರೀ ಅನ್ನ ಅಂತ ಹೆಸರು ಕೊಟ್ಟು 2023ರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಇಯರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತದಲ್ಲಿ we talked about. But this year the emphasis has been on Makna. Makna has been given the name called superfood. So on that line, a Makna board has been established in Bihar. High amount of investments are required. Regional balance is required. One-stop solution for all these problems. For the weak link called secondary sector, for regional balance, and also for employability is MSMEs. MSMEs are highly employable. They work on a technology that's largely people friendly. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಹೂಡಿಕೆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೂಡಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಜನರಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಹೂಡಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಅರ್ಥವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿ, ಹೂಡಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಇನೋವೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಹೌ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಹಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕನ್. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to all of you. As a new year starts, for all those of you who've been in preparation, you look at the upcoming prelims. For all those of you who are starting preparation, you're now trying to understand all those things that are happening. Now, most importantly, as the parliament starts the first session of its calendar year, this is the budget session. Budget becomes an extremely important idea from your preparation point of view. For all of you who are writing exam this year, that's the prelims upcoming in May, budget becomes extremely important. Now, from the idea of economic survey and budget, these are two important government documents which come with a lot of questions. So let's give a little clarity before we start upon. Economic survey is very, very important from mains perspective. However, there are some knowledge of economic survey that does come important for prelims also. But when you compare the same idea with budget, budget is more important from prelims perspective and also important from mains perspective, because along with the analysis, there are a lot of topics from where it can generate a lot of MCQs that have been there. Please understand, budget is not purely economics. Budget, like economic survey, is a socio-economic document. More so, it's a socio-economic political document. From that perspective, today, when we analyze the budget, we are not trying to understand budget from a common man's point of view. We are not trying to understand budget to say that idrinda yarg ಒಳ್ಳೆದಾಯ್ತು, yarg ಒಳ್ಳೆದಾಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಇವ್ರಿಗೇನ್ ಸಿಕ್ತು, ಇವ್ರಿಗೇನ್ ಸಿಕ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಜನರಲಿ ನಾವು ಮನೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡುವಾಗ ಯಾವ ಬೆಲೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯ್ತು, ಯಾವ ಬೆಲೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಯ್ತು, ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. The larger idea of today's session is to ensure any student who is giving up the competitive exams, ಸ್ಪರ್ಧಾತ್ಮಕ ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಗಳನ್ನ ಟಾರ್ಗೆಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋ ಯಾವುದೇ ಅಭ್ಯರ್ಥಿಗಳಿರಲಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಇಂದ ಯಾವ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ನೀವು ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನೀವು ಇದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. Specifically to the UPSC exam, that's the civil services exam, we have seen a lot of trend oriented questions. That's why in the budget today, we have done a lot of comparative analysis over the last 2 years. So for those questions, when you hear that over the last few years, over the recent years, such kind of question tags, this will give you a ready reckoner. Let me also assure you, at the end of the budget, I've given you a list of schemes. Generally, when we are preparing, the idea of government schemes and programs becomes a headache. How much to learn? Where to learn from? Here is where the idea comes from. Budget mentions a lot of schemes and programs, especially it's a continuing government. So, the programs that have been successful, the programs that they have drawn a 2.0 version, and new programs that are instituted. These are some things that we'll discuss further. So, starting now, when you understand the budget, I can assure you, this session gives you a larger clarity. This session helps you understand budget from a basic point of view. That's a fundamental clarity. Further, what is special in this year's budget? How have they differentiated? This is also something. Not making it too very serious, we have added some infographics, we have added also some data so that you get also information, further such, adding to the information some more clarity, so your preparation becomes learning oriented. Further, your remembrance also will be much better. Okay, so with this basic initiative, let's start to the budget session of 2025. We all understand the government has continued. Last year, after the interim budget, we had a full budget. So this is the first full budget after the election year that has come. So government now knows it has a full 4-year mandate. So keeping all this in mind, Nirmala Sitharaman, presenting her 8th continuous budget as such, has given a lot of ideas. So let's understand them step by step, sector by sector, also getting that clarity further. Okay? But understanding budget is also important from the fundamentals point of view. Please remember, budget also is important from you look at polity point of view, because the constitutional aspects of budget is important. Budget is also important from economics point of view, more so in mains. GS paper 3 has an exclusive topic called government budgeting. So some understanding of budget from this perspective is further important. So keeping both of this in mind, as I mentioned earlier, when we talk of budget being a socio-economic political document, these are ideas that we are going to discuss. We will not forget that we are discussing this to all the aspirants who are giving the exam. So ನೀವೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಪರ್ಧಾತ್ಮಕ ಪರೀಕ್ಷೆಗಳ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಈ ಒಂದು ಸೆಷನ್ ಅನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ whatever you understand here, that is something that will definitely help probably in your Group B, Group A exams, and to some extent, some factuals that will definitely help you. We are looking at general knowledge or general awareness type of questions also. Okay, so hope all of you are ready. This will be a very packed session. I'm not going to go into much details, but definitely going to give you such information that will be capturing you and that you can remember for certain time from now. Okay, so with this basic introduction, let's start upon the budget for the year 2025-26. But listen this, when we talk of budget, we say 2025-26. But when we talk of the economic survey presented just one day before the budget, it is 2024-25. So that's the first differentiation that all of you should keep in mind. Budget is an estimate. Budget is a collection of the upcoming year. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಏನಂತೀವಿ ನಾವು ಮುಂಗಡ ಪತ್ರ ಅಂತೀವಿ. The idea of the upcoming year that we are presenting up to. But economic survey on the other side is a status document. It's a very well researched document that gives out what has happened in the past 1 year. And in that sense, what are the challenges that are upcoming and how should India as an economy get prepared for? This is the basic differentiation that all of you should carry. Today's session is exclusively about the budget. Probably very soon we'll be coming up with more sessions on the economic survey, but more importance of economic survey is for the mains. It's a gold mine of information when you look at how economic survey should be studied. Let's restrict ourselves to the budget this now. As I said, let's start with some fundamentals and take it forward. Okay? Budget. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮುಂಗಡ ಪತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಮುಂಗಡ ಪತ್ರ ಅನ್ನೋ ಹೇಳೋ ಉದ್ದೇಶ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮುಂಬರುವ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ ಅಂತ. ಬಜೆಟ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ದಿನದ ಮುಂಚೆ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನ ಮಂಡಿಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಹಿಂದೆ ನಡೆದಿರೋ ವರ್ಷ, ಮುಂಬರುವ ವರ್ಷದ ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಗೆ ನೀವು ವರ್ಷವನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸಮೀಕ್ಷೆಯನ್ನ 2024-25 ಅಂತ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಥವಾ ಮುಂಗಡ ಪತ್ರವನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ 2025-26 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಂಬರುವ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ವರ್ಷದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸಾಲಿನ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಅರ್ಥವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ನಂತರ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾರಿಕೇಚರ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಪ್ರತಿ ಬಾರಿ ಕೇವಲ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ವಿಷಯವಾಗಿ ಉಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳಲ್ಲ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಕೂಡ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತಲಿನ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾವೊಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ವೋಟ್ ಐಡಿಯಾನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಕೆಲವು ಕ್ಯಾರಿಕೇಚರ್ಸ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಬಜೆಟಿನ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬಹುದು. ಈ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಯಾರಿಕೇಚರ್ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ವರ್ಷದ ನಂತರ ಬಂದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ವಲಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಅಷ್ಟು ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನೂ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು, ಇರುವಂತಹ ಚಾಲೆಂಜಸ್ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಈ ಕ್ಯಾರಿಕೇಚರ್ ನಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಸವಿನಯವಾಗಿ ವರ್ಣಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನಂತರ ಇದನ್ನೇ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ವರ್ಷ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ವೋಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಗಳಿಸೋದಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಕೂಡ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗೋದಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಬ್ಯಾಗಿನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಾನು ಮುಂಚೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ನಂತರ ಅದೇ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ನಂತರ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಒಂದು ಸಾರ್ವತ್ರಿಕ ಚುನಾವಣೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಹೋದಂತ ವರ್ಷ. ಆ ವರ್ಷವೂ ಕೂಡ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಹಂತದ ಜನರನ್ನ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ನೋಡುವಂತ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ವರ್ಷ. ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಅಂದ್ರೆ 2025-26 ಸಾಲಿನ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬಂದಾಗ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ಸ್ ನಂತರ ನಡೆದಂತ ಒಂದು ಫುಲ್ ಬಜೆಟ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷ ಒಂದು ಇಂಟರಿಮ್ ಬಜೆಟ್, ನಂತರ ಒಂದು ಫುಲ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಆದ ನಂತರ ಈ ವರ್ಷ ಒಂದು ಫುಲ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ನಂತರದ ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ರಿಸಲ್ಟ್ ನ ಪರಿಣಾಮವಾಗಿ ನಡೆದಿರುವಂತ ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಪರಿಣಾಮವಾಗಿ ಅದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲಕ್ಕೂ ಕಿವಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರುವಂತ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಮಧ್ಯಮ ವರ್ಗಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ರಿಲೀಫ್ ತಂದ್ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಮಾತಿದೆ. ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವೆಲ್ಲ ವಲಯಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಇದೆ, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ತೆರಿಗೆ ಕಡಿತವಾಗಿದೆ, ನಮ್ಮ ಆಮದು ಸುಂಕಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಿ ರಫ್ತಿನ ಗುಣಮಟ್ಟನ ಹೇಗೆ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನ್ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕಲಿ ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿಯಲ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ನ ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ MSME ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮೀಡಿಯಂ, ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಎಂಟರ್ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್ ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಬ್ಯಾಲೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನೀವು ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಚಿತ್ರಣವನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಕಾರ್ಟೂನ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಹೇಗೆ ವರ್ಣಿಸ್ತಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಬ್ರಿಲಿಯಂಟ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಓಕೆ, so coming back to the idea of budget. Now the term budget, where does it come from? ನಮ್ಮ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we've always had this picture. ನಾವು ಚಿಕ್ಕ ಹುಡುಗರಿಂದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಒಬ್ರು ಫೈನಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಬರ್ತಾರೆ, ಒಂದು ಸೂಟ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಎತ್ತಿಡಿತಾರೆ. ದಟ್ ಸೂಟ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಸಿಂಬಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬಜೆಟ್. We did not understand at that time why is that a suitcase, because it's a general briefing and in that sense budget documents are kept in that suitcase. But is there a story behind it? There is definitely a story behind it. The term budget comes from this French term called boget, which in English goes on to become budget, and in simple the meaning of that term is a leather bag. So it's a British legacy that's followed. A finance minister carrying a leather bag with simple means the budget. That's how the tradition has followed. That's why you saw multiple finance ministers across time coming up with this idea of a leather bag and calling it the budget. However, when India had the first full-time woman finance minister, now who was the first woman finance minister? Of course, it was Indira Gandhi, but she was prime minister holding the additional charge of finance. But Nirmala Sitharaman was the first full-time woman finance minister. And as the first full-time woman finance minister, she wanted to make an impact. So she said, let's do away with this colonial legacy. And she came up with a larger idea. ಅವರು ಈ ಒಂದು ಲೆದರ್ ಬ್ಯಾಗ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆ ಸೂಟ್ ಕೇಸ್ ಸಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಯನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದಿಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಭಾರತೀಯತೆಯನ್ನ ಎತ್ತಿ ಹಿಡಿಯೋಣ, ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಕಲ್ಚರ್ನ ಎತ್ತಿ ಹಿಡಿಯೋಣ ಅನ್ನೋ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಹಿ ಖಾತಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ತರ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಅವರ ಪ್ರಕಾರ, ಅಥವಾ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಇನ್ ಪರ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್, ಬಹಿ ಖಾತಾ is a cloth bag where you wrap up the documents. So this is something that she started when she presented her first budget as the first full-time woman finance minister. So Indian emblem embossed, this was Bahi Khata. However, given the importance of climate change, of environmental awareness that we are building upon, budget has gone paperless. A varshada nantara, every budget has been the idea where we are presenting the budget in a tab. Now, why am I discussing all this? Given the nature of UPSC and the unpredictability, we are definitely expecting a question on Bahi Khata sometime. This is an expectation for quite some years now, but ee varsha sakashtu madhyamagalali many news channels reported that the tab was carried in a Bahi Khata sleeve. So you never know, this can once again become a question. So basic understanding of what is a Bahi Khata, it's just a traditional Indian idea of carrying financial documents in a cloth bag. ಸೊ ಬಹಿ ಖಾತಾ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದು, ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು 2 ಮಾರ್ಕ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಹಿಂದೆ ಮುಂದೆ. ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಆ ಒಂದು ಟರ್ಮ್ ನ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಬಹಿ ಖಾತಾ. ಮುಂದುವರಿಯೋಣ. ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ, ಆಸ್ ಐ ಸೆಡ್, ಫ್ರಮ್ ದೆನ್ ಆನ್ವರ್ಡ್ಸ್ budget has been paperless, so she's been reading out from a tab. So that's the larger idea of spreading out environmental awareness and consciousness as such. More so, right, not getting much into detail, the discussion also slips into the sari that the finance minister wears. In that sense, given again how UPSC has been touching upon, this times her sari has been an Odisha silk sari is how the discussion was. So a lot of such ideas have been coming up, so you never know. ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೆಲವು ಈ ರೀತಿ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು ಕೂಡ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನಾವು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಫೈನಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಅವರ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲವು ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಥವಾ ಕೆಲವು ಹಳೆ ರಿಸರ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ಯಾಗ್ ಬಳಸಿರೋದಿದೆ. ತಿರುಕುರಳ್ನ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಬಳಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ, ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಕೂಡ ಬಳಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಕೂಡ ಕೆಲವು ಬಜೆಟ್ಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇರುವಂತಹ ಆರ್ಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ಯು ಮೇ ಸಿ ಆಸ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಒಬ್ಸರ್ವಿಂಗ್ ಅಪಾನ್. So now let's come to the first part, budget basics. Let's understand the basics very quickly and clearly. We all know the term budget comes from this French term called boget. India started budget much during the colonial time, so it was the British who introduced the idea of budget. Post-independence, when budget started in India, the first budget in India was presented by none other than R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. Okay, so that was the first budget presented. Budget is an estimation of revenue and expenses. Now that word estimation is very important. Why? Because in any budget, we are not giving you the actuals. We are giving you an estimation of the upcoming year. ಮುಂಬರುವ ವರ್ಷಗಳದ ಖರ್ಚು ಮತ್ತು ಆದಾಯವನ್ನ ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಆಯವ್ಯಯವನ್ನು ತೋರಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಕಡೆ ಮುಂಗಡ ಪತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಆಯವ್ಯಯ ಪತ್ರ ಅಂತಾನು ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಷನ್ ಆಫ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ಸ್ specified future period of time, generally 1 year. That's why it is called. More so, please understand, India we don't use the term called budget in the constitution. What is that we have? Under Article 112, we have the idea of annual financial statement. So budget can be made for a person. Now kuda manegalal ಮಾಡ್ತೇವೆ. A company can have a budget. Similarly, the country has a budget. So, and that perspective taken in consideration, budget was first introduced in India in 1860s during the colonial times. Later on, post-independence, we have started on. The first budget in India was presented by R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. This is immediately after independence, much before the elections happened and elected government came in place. So, 26 November 1947, the first budget was presented by none other than R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. This can become a fact point as such that you should know. But after the elections, the first budget was presented by Sir John Mathai. So John Mathai presented both the railway budget and the finance budget. That's the general budget as such. So this is some basic understanding or a fact point that you should know to start with. Further going on, what have been some of the reforms? We all know 1921 and onwards, budget has been separated. So we had a railway budget and general budget. So railway budget was presented, then the general budget was presented. 2016-17, we have clubbed back both. So we have only one now, which is combining railway budget and the general budget. Second, budget timeline. Generally, budget was presented on the last day of February, but taking multiple considerations, government is wanting to advance that timeline. So presently, budget is presented on the first day of February. Government is even wanting to present it in January to avoid the vote on account idea. And timings, this is something all of you will know, that keeping the colonial understanding, we were presenting the budget around 5:36 in the evening. 1999 and onwards, Yashwant Sinha was then finance minister. We have been now presenting the budget on Indian constitutional timings or the parliamentary timings at 11 o'clock. This is some basic reforms that have come across. Further, who makes the budget? It is the finance ministry. We all know finance ministry is a very large ministry. It has 5 departments. Department of Economic Affairs is responsible for making the budget. Even the economic survey comes from the Department of Economic Affairs. So finance ministry, Department of Economic Affairs is responsible for the budget. In the constitutional terminologies under Article 112, we call it the annual financial statement. Now, we generally study these important articles. Article 112 is about annual financial statement. Article 110 is about money bill. Similarly, about demand for grants, about appropriation bill. But last year, what did UPSC ask? UPSC asked something related to Article 109. And what is 109? Now, we know 110 is about money bill and everything related, but 109 is about the procedure of money bill. This is how UPSC catches the raw nerve. So just be prepared. If you know it clearly, if there is precision in your understanding, you definitely will be there. Okay, so that's the idea. You know, it's the budget division, including FRBM, specifically in Department of Economic Affairs. This much is necessary. Rest all is for your understanding. So budget anna let's understand from the constitutional point of view. So ಸಂವಿಧಾನ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದನೂ ಕೂಡ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ budget ಅನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. The most interesting thing that all of you should know is ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂವಿಧಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ budget ಅನ್ನೋ ಪದವನ್ನ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. So our constitution does not have the term called budget. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ what is it mentioned as? It is mentioned as this idea called annual financial statement. Okay, so Article 112 of the Constitution talks about what is called annual financial statement, and illi budget annod pada mention agila. That's where the idea of budget is taken in specifically. Budget is generally seen from 3 accounts. So government ಅಥವಾ parliament budget ಗೆ ಒಪ್ಪಿಗೆ ಕೊಡೋದಾಗ್ಲಿ, budget ಇಂದ ಹಣ ಖರ್ಚು ವೆಚ್ಚಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಾಗ್ಲಿ 3 ಅಕೌಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇಂದ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಒಂದನ್ನ ಕನ್ಸಾಲಿಡೇಟೆಡ್ ಫಂಡ್ ಅಂತೀವಿ. ಕನ್ಸಾಲಿಡೇಟೆಡ್ ಫಂಡ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 266. Consolidated fund is directly under the control of the parliament. It is the supreme account of the country, and consolidated fund ಇಂದ ನೀವು ₹1 ತೆಗೆಯೋದಕ್ಕಾಗ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕೋದಕ್ಕಾಗ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕೂ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ನ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಪ್ರಾಪ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಬಿಲ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಬಿಲ್ ಇದೆ, ಅದನ್ನ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. ನಂತರ ಪ್ರತಿ ಬಾರಿ ನಾವು ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಕರೆಯಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ವರ್ಷ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನೂ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಷನ್ ಇದ್ದು ಪ್ರತಿ ಬಾರಿ ಖರ್ಚು ವೆಚ್ಚ ಆದಾಗ ಎಲ್ಲಾನು ನಾವು ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ತಗೊಳಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ವೈ ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಒಮ್ಮೆ ನಾವು ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಅಷ್ಟು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಅಪ್ರಾಪ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಬಿಲ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಪರ್ಮಿಷನ್ ತಗೊಂಡು ನಂತರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಪಾಸಸ್ ದಿ ಅಪ್ರಾಪ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಬಿಲ್ ವಿಚ್ ಗೋಸ್ ಆನ್ ಟು ಬಿಕಮ್ ಅಪ್ರಾಪ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಆಕ್ಟ್, ಅಂಡ್ ದೆನ್ ಯು ಡ್ರಾ ದಿ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಮನಿ, keep it into public account. It is under the same article 266, but public account is under the control of ದಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್. ಸೊ ಆಗಿನ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಯಾವ್ದು, ದ ಎಕ್ಸಿಕ್ಯೂಟಿವ್ ಆಫ್ ದಟ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಟೈಮ್, ದೇ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲಿಂಗ್ ದಿ ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್. Then we have another account which is called the contingency fund. ಕಂಟಿಂಜೆನ್ಸಿ, ಆ ಪದದ ಅರ್ಥನೇ ಕಂಟಿಂಜೆನ್ಸಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಮರ್ಜೆನ್ಸಿ, ಕಂಟಿಂಜೆಂಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್. ಈ ಒಂದು ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 267. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ದಿ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರೆಸಿಡೆಂಟ್. ಇದೇ ರೀತಿ ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಗಳ ಮಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಕನ್ಸಾಲಿಡೇಟೆಡ್ ಫಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ಲೆಜಿಸ್ಲೇಚರ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ, ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ ವಿತ್ ದಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಆ ಒಂದು ರಾಜ್ಯ ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ, ಮತ್ತು ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸಿ ಫಂಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್, ಆ ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಗವರ್ನರ್ ಯಾರಿರ್ತಾರೆ, ರಾಜ್ಯಪಾಲರಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಿ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಶುಡ್ ನೋ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ವಿಷಯವನ್ನ ನೀವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ಗಮನಿಸಬೇಕು. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಮಸೂದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಬಿಲ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಅದನ್ನ ಹಿಂಪಡಿಬಹುದು, ಅದರಿಂದ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮುಖಭಂಗ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಹೊರತು ಬೇರೆ ಏನೂ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಪಾಸ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಫ್ ದಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಪಾಸ್ ದಿ ಬಜೆಟ್, ದಟ್ಸ್ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ಲಿ ಅ ನೋ ಕಾನ್ಫಿಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಮೋಷನ್, which means if the government is not able to pass the budget, then the government has to resign. ನಿಮಗೆ ನೆನಪಿರ್ಬೋದು 2018-19 ಕುಮಾರಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಅವರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಯಾಕೆ ಬಿತ್ತು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಅವರು ಆಗ ತಂದಂತ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಬಾಂಬೆ ರಾಜಕಾರಣ ನಡೆದು ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ನಡೆದ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಅ ಕಾನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್ ಪರ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ದಟ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನೋ. ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್, when you take the idea as such, Article 112 ಅಂತ ನಾವೇನ್ ತಿಳಿಸಿದೀವಿ, the same Article 112 clearly specifies that budget has to be shown in two accounts, and that's the idea of a revenue budget and a capital budget. Okay, ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ಡ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿನ ಖರ್ಚು ವೆಚ್ಚಗಳಲ್ಲಿ there is no asset created. So fixed time period, generally non asset creating. ಬಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ನೋ ಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್, 2-3 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಎರಡು ಮೂಲಕ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್ 112 ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಸೈಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂಡ್ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಸೈಡ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬಜೆಟ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಇನ್ ಟು ದ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ಸ್. ನಾವು ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ಗೆ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ನ ಬಂದಿಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಈ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ಸ್ ನಿಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬಾರಿ ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ. GS ಪೇಪರ್ 3 ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಬಜೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತಾನೆ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಸಿವ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇದೆ. ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಟೇಕ್ ದಿಸ್ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನೋ. ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಗೋ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್. Now, just giving you an idea as such, as we understood under Article 112, budget has a revenue side and a capital side. We understood revenue, fixed time frame but non-asset creating. Capital, no fixed time frame but asset creating. Iday idea dalli, when we are taking into specific consideration, revenue side of the budget has revenue receipts and revenue expenditures. Hagidre revenue receipts ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಳಬರುವಂತ ಆದಾಯಗಳು, ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಹೊರ ಹೋಗುವಂತ ಖರ್ಚುಗಳು, ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತ ಖರ್ಚುಗಳು. ಆ ಐಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫೈಂಗ್ ಇಂಟು ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್. ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತೆರಿಗೆ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುವಂತಹ ಹಣ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೇರ ತೆರಿಗೆ ಮತ್ತು indirect taxes. So direct and indirect taxes both come into consideration as part of tax receipts of revenue. In the non-tax receipts, non-tax receipts ಯಾವ್ದಿರುತ್ತೆ? ಯೂಸರ್ ಚಾರ್ಜಸ್, ರೈಟ್, ಪೆನಾಲ್ಟೀಸ್, ಫೈನ್ಸ್, ಈ ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಕೆಲವು ನಮಗೆ ಬರುವಂತಹ ಗ್ರಾಂಟ್ಸ್, ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಗ್ರಾಂಟ್ಸ್. ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಕಡೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಬಟ್ ಗ್ರಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಕಡೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so this is the basic understanding as such, right? So from non-tax perspective, your fines, penalties, grants, these are coming in terms here. ಲೋನಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕೂಡ ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ. ಫಿಸ್ಕಲ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಎಕ್ಸ್ಕ್ಲೂಸಿವ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಇದೆ, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಇನ್ನಷ್ಟು ಡೀಟೇಲ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ತಿಳಿಸ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬಾರಿ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಲೈಕ್ ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್, ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ನಾಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್. ಈ ರೀತಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ಸ್ ನ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ನೆಗ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಡಿ, ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಇರಲಿ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನಾವು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಇಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಾರೋಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್, ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಸೇಲ್, Right, this is in terms of disinvestment expenditure. That idea comes into. So disinvestment ಅಥವಾ ಅಸೆಟ್ ಸೇಲ್ ಇಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಬರುವಂತಹ ಆದಾಯ, ಬಾರೋಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ರೂಪದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಬರುವಂತಹ ಆದಾಯ, ಅವೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಕೂಡ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ತವೆ. ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್, ಕ್ಯಾಪೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಇನ್ಫ್ರಾಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಆಗುವಂತ ಖರ್ಚುಗಳು, ಇದನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಕ್ಯಾಪೆಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ನಂತರ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ನಾವೇನ್ ತಗೊಂತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಯಾವ loans na kodthivi, what are the loans that we are giving out, that comes as part of your capital expenditure. That's the idea that we should know. This is loans that are received and loans that are given. Now idanne artha ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಯಾವ ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಆ ಲೋನ್ ನಮಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. So from that idea we are taking into consideration that if we are taking loans here, that loans will be repaid. Right, so this is loans given getting repaid. Similarly ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಆ ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ರೀಪೇ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಸಣ್ಣ ಸಣ್ಣ ವಿಷಯಗಳಿವೆ which is part of your understanding that you should know. ನಾವು ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಆ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ನಾನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಆಲ್ ದಿ ಸ್ಯಾಲರೀಸ್ ಪೇಡ್, ವೆಲ್ಫೇರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್, ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಬರುವಂತಹ ಕನ್ಸಂಪ್ಷನ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸಿಮಿಲರ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ತಗೊಂಡಿರುವಂತಹ ಲೋನ್ಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕಟ್ಟಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಸೊ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ನೋ. ಈ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನಂತರ ನಾವು ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಗೆಟ್ ದ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಹಿಯರ್. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಲಾರ್ಜೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್? Right, the largest expenditure of the government is interest payment. Yake, what is the largest revenue for the government? Loans and borrowings. So loans and borrowings being the largest revenue in terms of capital. Similarly, interest payment is largest expenditure. ಇದೇ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಫಿಸ್ಕಲ್ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್, ಪ್ರೈಮರಿ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್, ಈ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಇದೇ ಐಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತೀವಿ. ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್, ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಈ ಕಾಲಮ್ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಬೇಸಿಕ್. From the idea, we talk of deficits andaga, there are 4 deficits. Revenue deficit purely dealing in revenue receipts and revenue expenditures difference. Then 2012 ಹೊಸದಾಗಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂತ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್, ನಥಿಂಗ್ ಬಟ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್. ಅದರಿಂದ ನಾವು ಗ್ರಾಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನ ತೆಗೆದು ನೋಡುವಂತಹ ಐಡಿಯಾ. The most important concept in that perspective is the idea of fiscal deficit. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕತೆ ಹೇಗಿದೆ, right, the financial health of a country can be understood through this concept called fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is the simple idea of total expenditure in difference with revenue receipts plus non-debt creating capital receipts anta. Now ಇದು ಕೂಡ ಒಂದು ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಚುಯಲ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್. ನಾನ್ ಡೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಯಾಕೆ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ? ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ತಗೊಳ್ಳುವಂತಹ ಲೋನ್ಸ್ ನ ವಿ ಡೋಂಟ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರ್ ಆಸ್ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಅವರ್ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ಸ್. ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಎಂಟೈರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್, ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಎರಡೂ ತಗೊಂಡು ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಳೋವಾಗ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಲೋನ್ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ತಗೊಂತೀವಿ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಟೋಟಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಇನ್ ಡಿಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ plus non-debt creating capital receipts. So these are very important. The last idea is that we take in consideration of primary deficit. Primary deficit is to understand what is the minimal deficit of the country, because ನಾನು ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸಾಗೆ largest expenditure is interest payments. So interest payments ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, so primary deficit is nothing but fiscal deficit minus interest payments. This is the idea. So ಇದು ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ನ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್. ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಪ್ಯೂರ್ಲಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್, ಬಟ್ ಫಿಸ್ಕಲ್ ಪಾಲಿಸಿಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟ ಹಾಗೆ ಇದು ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಐಡಿಯಾ ನಿಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿದಿರಬೇಕು. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಆಲ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಟು ಬಜೆಟ್. ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬಾರಿ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಕಲಿಯೋವಾಗ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಫಂಡಮೆಂಟಲ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇರಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿದ್ದಷ್ಟು ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇದನ್ನ ಯಾಕೆ ನಾವು ಮುಂಚೆ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಮುಂದೆ ನಾವು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೇವೆ ಪಾರ್ಟ್ 2 ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಬಜೆಟ್, ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಬಿ, ಡೇಟಾ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪದ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ, ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಪದ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಆಗ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಅಂತ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕು. ಇನ್ ದಟ್ ಸೆನ್ಸ್ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ದಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಮೂವ್ ಫಾರ್ವರ್ಡ್ ಟು ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಸ್ ಸಚ್. ರೈಟ್, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಮಗೆ 3 ವರ್ಷದ ಡೇಟಾ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ರೈಟ್, ಬಜೆಟ್ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ 3 years ಡೇಟಾ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಗಿವನ್. ಸೊ ಯಾವ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಆ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮುಂಬರುವ ವರ್ಷದ, ಈ ವರ್ಷ ನಾವು 2025-26 ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಓಕೆ, ನಾನು ಆ ಫಿಗರ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪ್ಲೈನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂದಾಗ ಮುಂಬರುವ ವರ್ಷ, ರೈಟ್, ಮುಂಗಡ ಪತ್ರ. ಸೊ 2025-26. ನಂತರ ಹಿಂದಿನ ವರ್ಷ, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಹಿಂದಿನ ವರ್ಷದ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೋದ ವರ್ಷದ ರಿವೈಸ್ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಸ್ 2024-25 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೋದ ವರ್ಷ ನಾವು ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದರ ರಿವೈಸ್ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೂಡ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದರ ಹಿಂದಿನ ವರ್ಷ 23-24 ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಮುಂದೆ ಮುಗಿದಿರೋ ಕಾರಣದಿಂದ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇದರ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಇದೇ ಇಮೇಜ್ ಮೂಲಕ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಬಜೆಟ್ 25-26. ದಿಸ್ ಇಮೇಜ್ ಇಸ್ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿ ಪ್ರೆಸ್ ಬ್ಯೂರೋ. ಸೊ 25-26 budget ali we are giving the upcoming year's budget estimates. So you see this is budget estimates. The previous year's revised estimates. So 2024-25 revised estimates. ಈ ಬಾರಿ 2 ವರ್ಷದ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್ ನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಸನ್ ಗೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಪ್ರೀವಿಯಸ್ ಇಯರ್ಸ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್, ಅದ್ರ ಹಿಂದಿನ ವರ್ಷದ ಆಕ್ಚುಯಲ್ಸ್. ಸೊ 3 ವರ್ಷದ ಸಮಗ್ರ ಮಾಹಿತಿ ನಿಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಬಜೆಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ 3 years data. Okay. So this is the fundamentals of the budget that all of you should know, a larger clarity that all of you should build. That's when your understanding of the budget will be complete. Budget ಅನ್ನ ನಾವು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ಫಂಡಮೆಂಟಲ್ಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಮಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲಿ, ಬರೀ ಅದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ನೋಡಿದೆ ಅದರಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಐಡಿಯಾನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಬಹುದಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Okay, so this is the basics related to the budget as such. Now going forward, let's specifically get into this year's budget, do a comparative analysis and understand. Before getting specific into this year's budget, let's also understand the type of budget. Now generally budget anta artha madkondaga there are 2 types. One, interim budget and then a full budget. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ interim budget ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವರ್ಷ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಯರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದಾಗ, ಆ ವರ್ಷ ಆ ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರದ ಮಟ್ಟದಲ್ಲಿ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಆ ಒಂದು ಸರ್ಕಾರಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂದಿನ 5 ವರ್ಷ ಅಥವಾ 3 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಕಾಲಾವಕಾಶ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಉಳಿದಂತ ಸಮಯಕ್ಕೆ ತರುವಂತಹ ಮಧ್ಯಂತರ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ನಾವು ಇಂಟರಿಮ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂತ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವಿ. ಟೆಂಪರರಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪದವನ್ನ ಬಳಸಲ್ಲ. ಇದೊಂದು ಚುನಾಯಿತ ಸರ್ಕಾರ. ದ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಬೀಂಗ್ ಎನ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಟೆಡ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್, ಇಟ್ ಡಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಮ್ಯಾಂಡೇಟ್ ಫಾರ್ ದಿ ಫುಲ್ 5 years now. It has to keep because elections are upcoming, we have the idea of called interim budget. So in an election year, the budget that comes in is a budget. So what is interim budget? It's an election year budget for the remainder time period. Why? Because government does not have mandate for the full year as such. How? ಆ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಜನರಲಿ ಲಾರ್ಜ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ಅನೌನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ. ಉಳಿದಂತಹ ಸಮಯಕ್ಕೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಐಡಿಯಾನ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಮೆನಿ ಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಯರ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ವೋಟ್ ಆನ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಂತಾನು ಕೂಡ ಟರ್ಮ್ ಬಳಸ್ತಾರೆ. ವೋಟ್ ಆನ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನು? ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆಗೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಟೈಮ್ ಹಿಡಿಯುತ್ತೆ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಆ 2 ತಿಂಗಳಿಗೆ 3 ತಿಂಗಳಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಮುಂಚೆನೆ ಅಪ್ರೂವಲ್ ತಗೊಂತೀವಿ, ಅದನ್ನ ವೋಟ್ ಆನ್ ಅಕೌಂಟ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಲೇಖಾನುದಾನ ಅಂತ. ದಟ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಇಸ್ ವೇರ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ಟೇಕಿಂಗ್ ಕನ್ಸಿಡರೇಷನ್ ವೆನ್ ಜನರಲಿ ಇನ್ ಅನ್ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇಯರ್. ಸೊ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನಾವು ಬಜೆಟ್. ಸೊ ಹೋದ ವರ್ಷ 2024ರಲ್ಲಿ ಭಾರತದ ಸಾರ್ವತ್ರಿಕ ಚುನಾವಣೆ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದ್ದ ಕಾರಣ ಆಗ ನಿರ್ಮಲಾ ಸೀತಾರಾಮನ್ ಅವರು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂತ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಫೆಬ್ರವರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದೊಂದು ಇಂಟರಿಮ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಆಗಿತ್ತು. ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ಥಾಪಿತವಾದಾಗ ಜುಲೈನಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದು ಫುಲ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಇಂಟರಿಮ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಫುಲ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಬೇಸಿಕ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸಿಯೇಷನ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. Now let's come to the budget of 2025-26. Now upcoming year's budget idea, let's understand the clarity as such. Let's get into the details specifically. Budget 2025-26 ಇದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ let's get a certain clarity. Now ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಸ್ಥಿರತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಸ್ಟೆಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಇರೋ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ ಏನು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಗಳು ಮುಂದುವರಿತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತವೆ. 2014ರಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಬಂದಾಗ ದ ಲಾರ್ಜೆಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಲೋಗನ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಸಬ್ಕಾ ಸಾಥ್ ಸಬ್ಕಾ ವಿಕಾಸ್. The idea of sabka saath sabka vikas is inclusion, right? ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾ. 5 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ನಂತರ 2019ರಲ್ಲಿ ದಿ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಷನ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಬಂದಂತದ್ದು ಸಬ್ಕಾ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜನರ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಗಳಿಸಿ ಸಬ್ಕಾ ಸಾಥ್ ಸಬ್ಕಾ ವಿಕಾಸ್ ಮತ್ತು ಸಬ್ಕಾ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್. 2022 ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಭಾರತ ದೇಶ 75 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯೋತ್ಸವನ ಅನುಭವಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಗ the idea that was added was sabka prayas. 75 ವರ್ಷಗಳಾಗಿವೆ. 2047 ಅಂದ್ರೆ by 2047 India will be 100 years of independence. So the prime minister of the country set a vision of a developed nation. ಭಾರತ ದೇಶವನ್ನ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತವಾಗಿ ನೋಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಕನಸನ್ನ ಪ್ರಧಾನ ಮಂತ್ರಿಗಳು ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಇಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು ಅಮೃತ ಕಾಲ ಅಂತ ಕರೀತಾರೆ. The next 25 years will be called ಅಮೃತ್ ಕಾಲ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಈ 25 ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಅಮೃತ ಪೀಡಿ ಅಂತಾನು ಕೂಡ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ the budget from 2022 and onwards has continuously been working on this vision of Viksit Bharat. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ವಿಕಸಿತವಾದ ದೇಶವನ್ನ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವೇನ್ ಡೆವಲಪಿಂಗ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ವಿ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಅ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ ಬೈ 2047. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ದಿ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ವಿಷನ್. ಈ ಒಂದು ಬೃಹತ್ ಒಂದು ಮಹೋನ್ನತ ಒಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶವನ್ನ ಇಟ್ಟು ಬಜೆಟ್ ಕಂಟಿನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಈ ಬಾರಿಯ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಕೂಡ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತವನ್ನ ಒಂದು ಮುಖ್ಯ ಥೀಮ್ ಆಗಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿದೆ. ಈ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಕಟ್ಟೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಏನು, ಇದರಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಬಹುದು. ಕಳೆದ ಬಾರಿಯ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ 4 ಪದಗಳನ್ನ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಆ 4 ಪದಗಳೇನು? ನಮ್ಮ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಇರೋದು 4 ಒಂದು ಕಾಸ್ಟ್, ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಜಾತಿಗಳು ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ the idea of caste has become a very significant issue, but last year's budget talked about India having only 4 castes. Which are those? These are some things that we'll discuss. That's why this discussion is not only restricted to this year's budget idea, lot of comparative analysis so that you get a larger picture. More important, who is presenting the budget? For the 8th continuous time, you have the finance minister. So probably one lady who is presenting the budget and a woman, which means talking about women empowerment, India today has a president who is a woman and a finance minister who is a woman, and 8th continuous time. That's Nirmala Sitharaman presenting the budget for you. All the ups and downs from the COVID year till now, she's been continuously presenting the budget as such, and every time there's been an innovation. From the Bahikata, doing away with the colonial legacy, paperless budgets that have come across, different saris, each talking about the rich culture and heritage of India. So this side, we are talking now about this year's budget, 2025-26 budget ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ ಮುಂದುವರಿತಾ. What was the core theme? It said a vision for Sabka Vikas and Viksit Bharat. ಸೊ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತದ ಒಂದು ಬೃಹತ್ ಉದ್ದೇಶ, ಒಂದು ಮಹೋನ್ನತ ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ we are talking of Sabka Vikas, the idea of inclusion, taking everybody along towards this idea of a developed country. That's the basic theme line or the subaltern bottom line that we are taking in for this budget. Hangidre, what is that path that we are following? What are all the focus areas? Come, let's discuss. At the start of her budget speech itself, she took the name of a Telugu poet and she talked about very beautiful lines. Now in Telugu, it talks about Desamante Matti Kadoy, Desamante Manushaloy. The simple meaning of it is a country is not only about the soil, the country is about its people. So while we are talking about a Viksit Bharat, a developed India, we don't want to just take it from the framework, we want to carry the people along. And how do we carry the people along? It is about inclusion. So inclusive growth has been a fundamental line almost from the 9th 5-year plan onwards. After India accepted reforms of LPG through the 8th 5-year plan, we talked about basic minimum services in the 9th 5-year plan. The 11th and 12th 5-year plan also had the theme line of faster, sustainable, inclusive growth. So the idea of inclusive growth has been part of the Indian growth story since the reform time period. That is something that's been a continuity. So Sabka Vikas has been a basic idea. Now here, this is a famous Telugu poet, Sri Gurujada Apparao. Now Tirukural and Tiruvalluvar's idea has been continuously there. This year also it has been there, but this is a special mention. So from an art and culture perspective, basic idea about this great man has to be known. You never know, questions can come. Okay. So this is how she started the budget along, and then going on the journey of development with a focus on Viksit Bharat. So repeatedly, the idea is about Viksit Bharat, the journey towards a developed India by 2047. The next 25 years, when we envisioned in 2022, we are continuously in that direction. Viksit Bharat is about a developed India, and that has multiple challenges, multiple opportunities. India given in its prime youth, large demographic dividend. What are the focus areas and how did we take this forward? Now, budget talks about Viksit Bharat encompassing 6 basic core themes. What are the 6 basic core themes? Number 1, we want to alleviate poverty, has been long said, but the government has specifically put forward, this time the idea is about zero poverty. So the Niti Aayog also started along with this poverty elimination. So poverty is one thing, that's the target area of zero poverty. 100% good quality school education. Gone of those times where we're talking about 100% enrollment. Now we are talking about quality in school education. This is also part of sustainable development goals. Budget is talking about the same idea. So zero poverty, good quality school education, 100% good quality school education. So large vision. Third, access to high quality, affordable, comprehensive healthcare. So one side poverty, second about education, and third, comprehensive healthcare. It's not only primary, it's not only secondary, it's also the tertiary healthcare, geriatric care. So comprehensive healthcare, high quality and affordability. So accessibility, availability and affordability. All three A's taken together. So three major areas we have touched upon. A Viksit Bharat idea or a vision includes poverty elimination, high quality school education, then comprehensive healthcare of all sense. Then comes the fourth area, 100% skilled labor with meaningful employment. We all know India has a large dependence on agriculture and that has created a larger challenge. Our secondary sector is weak, large dependence on the tertiary sector, but tertiary sector is less employable. In this line, the fourth area that we are specially focusing upon is skilling. So skilled labor with meaningful employment. So gone of those times, we are talking about employment from very menial perspective. We are talking about skilled labor and meaningful employment. So this is also one major vision area that we are looking at. Then 70% women in economic activities. Now this is again very, very clear, improving the participation of women. When we talk of inclusion, it is inclusion of all sections of the society. And one of the most important inclusion that India definitely requires is about women participation. ನಾವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ, ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಜಾಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಹೇಗಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ದೇಶದ ಚಿತ್ರಣವನ್ನ ನಿರ್ಧರಿಸಬಹುದು ಅಂತ ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೀವಿ. ಯತ್ರ ನಾರ್ಯಸ್ತು ಪೂಜ್ಯಂತೆ ರಮಂತೆ ತತ್ರ ದೇವತಃ. This is something that all of you should have heard. So that line, missing women, is a concept that Amartya Sen also spoke about. Budget highlights that. So there is a focus about at least 70% participation of women in economic activities. So this is women in economic activities, so that improved labor force participation, active participation will definitely give a boost to the GDP. The last, farmers making our country the food basket of the world. We all understand India has a large dependency on agriculture. Close to 50% of the population is still dependent. How we can use that as a strength area? How India can become the food basket of the world? That is also that's been spoken about. So there are 6 clearly drawn about areas when we talk about Viksit Bharat. The Viksit Bharat has 6 clear drawn areas. 1, high quality school education, high quality healthcare, all this combined with zero poverty, that is poverty elimination. Then specifically talking about meaningful employment with skilled labor, women participation at least 70% in economic activities, and the last, farmers making India the food basket of the world. So Viksit Bharat has 6 specific areas. Now, how do I use this? As a civil services aspirant, where do I build my content for an essay writing? Where do I build my content for an answer writing? This is where you build. Now, if you quote, according to Budget 25-26, the idea of a Viksit Bharat has 6 specific areas. This is something that will definitely state from the book. That is how you improve the quality of your answers, improve the idea of your answers. Quote from the budget. And it is directly. This is directly from the budget document. Okay. So this is the 6 specific areas that the budget has been speaking about. Now going forward, what are those areas where an aspirational India should look at? Now, aspirational Viksit Bharat antandaga, we have talked about how the Prime Minister said that ivat yarella youth idira, 20ಇಂದ 25 ವರ್ಷದ ಏಜ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ಯೂತ್ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ, ಭಾರತ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತವಾದಾಗ ಮುಂದಿನ 25 ವರ್ಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲದರ ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ಸ್ ನೀವು ರೀಪ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ. ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ದಿ ಬೆನಿಫಿಷರೀಸ್ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಅನ್ ಆಸ್ಪಿರೇಷನ್ ಫಾರ್ ವಿಕಸಿತ್ ಭಾರತ್, ವಾಟ್ ಆರ್ ದಿ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ದಟ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಡೆಡ್? Accelerating growth, very, very important. And the growth rate that we want to accelerate growth. Secure inclusive development. Now, growth will not be one-sided, but we'll also have to look at an inclusive development. Enhance spending power of India's middle class. We always have talked about a developing country and a rising middle class. That's why the division of an upper and lower middle class. The spending power improve agida takshana, the idea of consumption comes into picture, which definitely will fuel growth. So, accelerating growth, securing inclusive development, spending power of the middle class, 3 specific, invigorating private sector investments. Now, Public sector investments have been continuously happening. Post reforms period, we have allowed private and foreign investments as such. But how do we encourage more and more meaningful private investment? Securing more and more meaningful private investment. That's been a focus area. And at last, uphold household sentiments. So household sentiments have to be uplifted. So the larger vision of building a country and taking it forward, the fight for sustenance has to be secured so that you're looking up at larger vision. So this is the aspiration for the Viksit Bharat idea. So 6 specific areas that you're targeting and the aspirations that we are looking at. So the budget has repeatedly emphasized on the theme of a developed India and a Viksit Bharat, where we have taken up this specific nature. Okay. So with this background, let's now look at what are the larger frameworks and the guiding spirit that we are looking at. The budget has 10 broad areas to focus upon. What are the 10 broad areas? Now, this is where I want to draw your focus upon. Last year's budget, 2024-25 budget, the government said there are only 4 castes. And which are those 4 castes? Garib, Youth, Annadata and Nari. Okay. So, Bharata Deshadalli 4 ಜಾತಿಗಳಿವೆ. ಆ 4 ಜಾತಿಗಳಂದ್ರೆ ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ಬಡವರು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಯಾರೆಲ್ಲ ಮಹಿಳೆಯರು ಇರ್ತಾರೆ, ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಅನ್ನದಾತರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ farmers and that the youth. So ಈ 4 now we have taken into specific focus, 10 focus areas taking in these 4 sense. 1, spurring agriculture growth and productivity. Very, very necessary. Again, repeatedly emphasizing close to 50% population dependent, limited land area. How do we increase productivity? So agriculture growth and productivity. Building rural prosperity and resilience. So given 2011 census data still said close to 62% of India is still rural, the new census data has to come up. On that basis, rural resilience is still very important. Everyone together in inclusive growth, repeated emphasis on inclusive growth so that your Sabka Vikas idea comes in. Boosting manufacturing and furthering market. We all know that in the growth paradox, the primary sector has a larger dependency of people. Contribution largely comes from the tertiary sector. So the weaker link for India's economy is the secondary sector. How can we combine and work so that the secondary sector starts spurring growth? So that's where we are talking about boosting manufacturing and in that sense furthering Make in India. Boosting manufacturing gives lot of exports, reduces our import burden, gives in a lot of employability, so it employs a lot number of people. That's the benefit that we also look at. Specifically taking in supporting MSMEs. Now, we will specifically discuss this because out of the 4 areas, one specific area budget is focusing on is MSMEs. Remember, MSMEs don't have the burden of high technology. They're highly employable, regionally balanced. So, in that sense, MSMEs are a huge boon for the country like India. That support of MSMEs is required. Enabling employment-led development. Now, any development, if it does not generate jobs, right? So the word called jobless growth is fruitless growth, is rootless growth. So any growth should be employment-led development. So it creates enough jobs. For a largely populated country like India, good quality employment is necessary. That's also the idea that the budget is focusing upon. Investing in people, economy and innovation. So your investments are on 3 areas: people, economy and innovation. Now, India needs a large-scale innovation in all sense. That's the area that we are speaking about. Then comes in securing energy supplies. The dependency on fossil fuels has been large. India as a tropical country has a large potential for renewable energy. So, how do you secure energy supplies along with what is existing? 2 new areas that you are venturing into. Promoting exports has been a large picture. Exports are very, very important given how do we keep our current account deficit in control. More exports also means domestic manufacturing, which means more employment generation and furthering growth potential. So exports is also an area that we are targeting. And last, nurturing innovation. So these are the 10 broad focus areas. There have been some repetition in terms of words, like we see innovation here and also innovation here. But the budget has 10 broad areas of focus, 4 specific people taken into consideration: Garib, Youth, Annadata and Nari. This is the larger idea that the budget has been speaking upon. Yes, it is subjective. The content can become a very good content for your essay writing, as we have said, and also your answer writing, which gives a lot of boost to the perspectives that you generate. Okay, so ಈ ರೀತಿ ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಈ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನ ಸಬ್ಜೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಗಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಈ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಬಳಸಲಿ, ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬರುತ್ತಾ? ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಈ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನ ನೀವು ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಎಸ್ಸೆ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬಳಸಬಹುದು. ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಲೆವೆಲ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಎಸ್ಸೆಗೆ ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಪ್ರಿಪರೇಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಜನರೇಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಇರಲ್ಲ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿರೋ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನೀವು ಒಂದು ಎಸ್ಸೆ ಬರೆಯುವಾಗ 2025-26ನೇ ಸಾಲಿನ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ರೀತಿ ವಿಷಯಗಳನ್ನ ಮಂಡನೆ ಆಗಿದೆ, ಈ ವಿಷಯಗಳ ಮೇಲೆ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಬರೆದ್ರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಆಟೋಮ್ಯಾಟಿಕ್ಲಿ ಇಂಪ್ರೂವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ವೇರ್ ಯು ಸ್ಕೋರ್ a 4 out of 10, you will definitely score a 6 out of 10. For an essay, it's a definite boost of 5 to 10 marks. That is the edge that we are looking up. So these are areas that you should focus on your essay writing and answer writing also, right? Rather than just writing some superficial content, ಈ ರೀತಿಯ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ನ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಎಸ್ಸೆ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗ್ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ದಯವಿಟ್ಟು ಬಳಸಿ, ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮುಂದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಬೃಹತ್ ಕನಸು ಹೊತ್ತಿದ್ದೀವಿ. 2047 ವಿ ವಾಂಟ್ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಡ್ ಕಂಟ್ರಿ. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ಒಂದು ಪಥಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಮುಂದಿನ ಈಗ 3 ವರ್ಷ ಕಳೆದಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮುಂದಿನ 22 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಗೈಡಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರಿನ್ಸಿಪಲ್ಸ್ ಯಾವುದು? ದೇರ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಲುಕಿಂಗ್ ಎಟ್ 3 ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್. ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ದಿ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್, inclusivity should become the guiding spirit, and at last sustainable development as the destination. ಸೊ ನಾವು ಈ ಪಥವನ್ನ ಸಾಗಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಮಗೆ ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್. ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಏರಿಯಾದಲ್ಲೂ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ, ರೈಟ್? 1947 ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆಂಟ್ ಆದಂತ ದೇಶ, 75 ವರ್ಷಗಳನ್ನ ದಾಟಿದ್ವಿ. ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಹಳೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲಾಸ್, ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್, ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ಸ್ ಮುಂದುವರಿಸ್ತಾ ಬಂದಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ನ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಸ್ ದಿ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್, ಗೈಡಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ಇನ್ಕ್ಲೂಸಿವಿಟಿ. ಎಲ್ಲರನ್ನೂ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಐಡಿಯಾ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬೇಕು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸಬ್ಕಾ ವಿಕಾಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಅಂಡ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್, ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಡೆಸ್ಟಿನೇಷನ್? ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ತಲುಪಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಒಂದು ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತವನ್ನ ತಲುಪಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಸೊ ರಿಪೀಟೆಡ್ ಎಂಫಸಿಸ್ ಆನ್ ದಿ ಸೇಮ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್. ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟಾಕ್ಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ 6 ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್, 10 specific focus areas, and now 3 specific things that we are taking in consideration. So the budget has clearly laid out a roadmap for a Viksit Bharat. These are terminologies that you should use in your answer writing, in your essay writing. Specific emphasis will definitely help. Now, budget aims for transformative reforms across domains, right? Now, reforms and the reforms yelli. Transformative reforms across these 6 domains. Which are these domains? One, taxation. India has had taxation structure. We still had the colonial ideas. Also further, 1961 Income Tax Act continues. Direct tax laws are still continued to be worked. DTC or Direct Tax Code is still a work in progress. So, one major domain where reforms are required is taxation. Second, the power sector. Power sector requires a large-scale reform in terms of the growing India, growing power demand in India. How do we balance the existing capacity? How do we increase the new capacity? One major reform in this time's budget has also been with respect to nuclear energy. Third, in urban development. Yes, from a country which was largely rural, we are now close to 40-45% urban. So urban development needs to be sustainable, like the Sustainable Development Goals talk about. Urban development needs to be inclusive. So, how urban development can be a focus area, specifically talking about mining. We all know mining is an important area. India is a rich country in terms of mines and minerals. There is deficit of some, there is surplus of some. How do we bring in reforms so that the strengths can be utilized effectively, the weaknesses can be effectively optimized? That's also a reform area that we're looking at. The financial sector. If the wheels of the economy has to work very well, the wheels have to be sufficiently greased. Alva? ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಗಾಡಿ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದರ ಮೇಂಟೆನೆನ್ಸ್ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಆಗಬೇಕು. ಫಿನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಗ್ರೀಸ್ ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈ ದೇಶದ ಪಥವನ್ನ ಸರಿದಾರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದಕ್ಕೆ. ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ಲಿ, ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನೂ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನ್ಸ್ ಇವೆ, ರೈಟ್? RBI ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಸೆಬಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಇನ್ಶೂರೆನ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಟೆಲಿಕಾಂ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ಐಡಿಯಾಸ್ನು ಕೂಡ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫಾಲ್ಟ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಎರಡರಲ್ಲೂ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಇದೆ. ಬರೀ ನಾವು ತಪ್ಪುಗಳನ್ನ ಕಂಡುಹಿಡಿಯೋದು ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಸರಿ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ರೆಗ್ಯುಲೇಟರಿ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಸ್ ದಿ ಫ್ಯೂಲ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಪದವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಬಳಸಿದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ? ಈ 6 ಏರಿಯಾಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ರಿಫಾರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ. ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೇಷನ್, ಪವರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್, urban development, mining, financial sector, and regulatory reform. These are the 6 areas where we are looking at reforms being necessary. Now, what are the key development measures when you're looking at development as such? Agriculture, MSME, investment and exports. So ಈ ಬಾರಿಯ ಬಜೆಟ್ 4 ಏರಿಯಾಗಳನ್ನ ಕೀ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ಐಡೆಂಟಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. They have called it growth engines of the country. So 4 growth engines. One, definitely agriculture. Repeatedly from independence we have emphasized it. Second, MSME, very important emphasis, much long due emphasis that was necessary. MSME is micro, small and medium enterprises. Next, investment. ಭಾರತ ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ನ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. 2 things that we always talk about is investment and infrastructure. So the third growth engine is investment and the fourth growth engine is exports. Generally we do this comparison between India and China. What is the China's strength? China's strength is exports. China is a huge export oriented economy, but India is a huge consumption oriented economy. So what should we do? India has to work on its exports. Now, as I said, exports means a lot of domestic manufacturing. That means a lot of employment generation. The spillover of encouraging exports is large. There is link between MSMEs and exports. There is link between investments and exports. And definitely if we focus on agriculture, so all these 4 areas are very much interlinked. That's why they can act as growth engines for the development of the country. The idea of Viksit Bharat needs a lot of focus. That's why we have talked about 6 focus areas, 10 areas where there's specific work required, and reforms as the fuel and what are those 6 areas of reforms? Now we are talking of 4 growth engines. Now let's discuss one engine by one engine individually, understand where the government has been planning to work upon. So there is emphasis step by step so that this path is very well planned. Let's take engine by engine now. Right, 4 growth engines: agriculture, MSME, investments and exports. Let's understand. The first engine is agriculture. We all know the importance of agriculture. One, large dependency, close to 50% of the population is still dependent on agriculture. And 2, land limited, rural area of the India is large. So as per census, we still see a large India being still rural in nature, agriculture being a dominated occupation. So how do we ensure this becomes a strength area of ours? How do we reap the benefits largely rather than just sitting and say this becomes a weakness? That is something that the budget has focused upon. Agriculture as the first growth engine. So when we take about here, they have specified some specific schemes. Let's understand them in general so that you get a clarity. The first idea, Pradhan Mantri or Prime Minister Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana. So the focus is about some specific seeds and schemes, developing agri-districts program. So we want to focus on specific districts so that they work upon their strength areas to cover about 100 districts with about 101.7 crore farmers. So Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana with about 100 agri-districts program that we are working upon. The second idea comes into mission cotton productivity. We all know cotton has a huge space in Indian agriculture, also in terms of the Indian economy. Exports from India are largely merchandise exports, specifically in terms of your garments. So mission cotton productivity is to improve the productivity of cotton in all those areas where cotton production has been large. A 5-year mission to facilitate improvements in productivity, sustainability of cotton farming is looked at. So one scheme of Dhan Dhanya Krishi Yojana and as per agri-districts. Second, taking into consideration of cotton productivity. Third, we want to have institutional mechanisms so that we increase upon. And there, Makna board has been. 2 years back, we talked about the idea of Shri Anna. So this about ಸಿರಿಧಾನ್ಯಗಳು ಅಂತ ನಾವೇನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಶ್ರೀ ಅನ್ನ ಅಂತ ಹೆಸರು ಕೊಟ್ಟು 2023 ಇಂಟರ್ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಇಯರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತದ್ರಲ್ಲಿ we talked about. But this year the emphasis has been on Makna. Makna has been given the name called superfood. So on that line, a Makna board has been established in Bihar. Now generally ನಮ್ಮ ಐಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ Makna ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಜೋಳದ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ದಪ್ಪದಾಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಪೂಜೆ ಪುರಸ್ಕಾರಗಳಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾರ್ತ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಳಸ್ತಾರೆ, ಆ ರೀತಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ವೆರಿ ನ್ಯೂಟ್ರಿಷಿಯಸ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಆರ್ ವರ್ಕಿಂಗ್ ಆನ್. Bihar has got a larger emphasis. Yes, there are elections coming up in Bihar. That along, Bihar has also a larger strength in agriculture as such. Next coming in, national mission on high yielding seeds. Now from independence till now, from the idea of green revolution we have been worked upon. It's not only about production, but yield and productivity, which needs high yielding varieties of seeds. So green revolution lu kuda one of the major component was high yielding variety. So there we are focusing on targeted development on propagation of seeds with high yield, pest resistance and climate resilience. So high yield, pest resistance and climate resilience. These are the three things that we are looking about in terms of high yielding. So there we have launched a national mission once again. So there's a cotton related mission and there is a high yielding variety seeds related mission. And last, enhancing credit through Kisan credit cards. So specifically, the idea of credit has been a major focus area in Indian agriculture, given the seasonal nature of agriculture and also the livelihood security that's been a major challenge. So agriculture being the first growth engine, we are targeting this. One, Dhan Dhanya Krishi and Agri districts. Then we are looking at cotton productivity mission, Makna board in Bihar, specifically the idea of superfood, national mission on high yielding varieties of seeds, and then enhance credit through Kisan credit cards. So these are the 5 focus areas. So ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೃಷಿ ವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಗೆ ಒಂದು ಬೂಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದಾಗ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಇಂಜಿನ್ಸ್ ಆಗಿ ನಾವು ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕೃಷಿಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಒಂದು ಮೇಜರ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಇಂಜಿನ್ ಆಗಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಈ ರೀತಿ ಐಡಿಯಾಸ್ ತಗೊಂಡಿದೆ. ಇದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ವಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಬೀನ್ ಫೋಕಸಿಂಗ್ ಅಪಾನ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ಪಲ್ಸಸ್. ಸೊ ಅದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಬಟ್ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಬಂದ ನಂತರ ಚರ್ಚೆ ಆದಂತ 2 ಮುಖ್ಯ ವಿಷಯಗಳು. ಒಂದು, ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ದಿ ಫುಡ್ ಬಾಸ್ಕೆಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್, ವೇರ್ ವಿ ಹವ್ ಟಾಕ್ಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರೆಂತ್ ಆನ್ ಅಗ್ರಿಕಲ್ಚರ್. ಹೌ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ದಟ್ ಬಿಕಮ್ ಅ ಫುಡ್ ಬಾಸ್ಕೆಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್? ದಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಏರಿಯಾ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸ್ಪೀಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್. ಸೊ ಫುಡ್ ಬಾಸ್ಕೆಟ್, ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ವಾಟ್ ಆಲ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ದಟ್ ವಿ ಲುಕ್ಡ್ ಅಪಾನ್. ಸೊ ಸೆಂಟರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅ ನ್ಯಾಷನಲ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಆಫ್ ಫುಡ್ ಟೆಕ್ನಾಲಜಿ, entrepreneurship and management in Bihar. So this is specific. We are talking about National Institute for Food Technology, Entrepreneurship and Management. So this is a major area. Again, this is getting established in Bihar. That's a boost. Further talking about budget allocations for key agriculture schemes see a dip. That's been a larger critic in terms specific to Narega and other schemes like Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and others have seen a little decrease. So there has been a plus and minus. Okay, so this is the counter. Again, continuing with the growth engine of agriculture, we are looking at Atmanirbharata in pulses. Along with inclusion and Sabka Vikas, post-COVID, one of the most used terminology in government programs is Atmanirbhar Bharat. Atmanirbharata andre namma self-sustainability, right? So that we don't get dependent upon. One major challenge has been pulses. Pulses andre belegalu. Okay. Now, what happens in India? Larger focus has been on rice and wheat. Since larger focus has been on rice and wheat, even the MSP also been targeting rice and wheat, pulses production has largely decreased. Remember, pulses don't require high quality or high fertile soil. They don't require high irrigation. So less fertile soil, medium irrigation is also fine, but still we are not able to grow pulses enough. So we are dependent on imports for pulses. That rises our import bill. ನಿಮಗೆ ಹಬ್ಬಕ್ಕೂ ಬೆಳೆಬೇಕು, ಎಲ್ಲಕ್ಕೂ ಬೆಳೆಬೇಕು, ಬಟ್ ನಾವು ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇರೋದು ಮಾತ್ರ ತುಂಬಾ ಕಡಿಮೆ. ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇರೋದನ್ನ ಮಾತ್ರ ನಮ್ಮಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೂ ಅಷ್ಟು ಮಾತ್ರ ಬೆಳೀತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಹ್ಯೂಜ್ ಡಿಪೆಂಡೆನ್ಸಿ. ಸೊ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಮೇಜರ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರಾಮ್ ದಟ್ ಹಸ್ ಕಮ್ ಅಪ್ ಈಸ್ ಟಾಕಿಂಗ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಆತ್ಮನಿರ್ಭರತಾ, ವಿಚ್ ಇಸ್ attaining self-sufficiency in pulses, climate resilient seeds, protein content enhancement and improved storage. That's the area that we are working upon. Now, along with this, the focus is on India Post as a catalyst for rural development, since there is a large spread of India Post. So post offices across close to 89% of post offices have been in rural area. How can we use that as a growth catalyst is something that they worked about. So agriculture as a growth engine, all these schemes jotege India Post mention kuda rural boost alli ide. This is the area. Now, pulses ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಡೇಟಾ ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ನಿಮಗೆ. Look at this from 2013-14 up to 24-25. So look at the amount of money that we have spent on importing pulses. This is something that we could have comfortably grown with in India and achieved self-sufficiency, but look at the amount. From almost 1.83 billion, it's gone up almost high to 4.24 billion during those years where ಪ್ರತಿ ಕೆಜಿ ಬೆಳೆ ನಿಮ್ಗೆ 200-250 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ತನಕ ಹೋಗಿತ್ತು. ಆ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ತಂಜಾನಿಯಾ, ಮಡಗಾಸ್ಕರ್, ಮಯನ್ಮಾರ್ ಈ ಕಡೆಯಿಂದ ಇಂಪೋರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವಿ. ದೆನ್ ವಿ ಸಾ ಡಿಪ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಫರ್ದರ್ ನೌ ಒನ್ಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸಿಂಗ್. ಗಿವನ್ ದಿಸ್, there is need for Atmanirbharata in pulses. So this is a data. On that basis, we have worked upon mission for Atmanirbharata in pulses, where we are specifically targeting, right, central agencies, accelerated pulses production program, ಈ ರೀತಿ ತರ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. We also looked at food processing hub, right? Now, how do we diversify agriculture is also been a major challenge. In that sense, food processing hub is what we have developed. National Institute of Food Technology, Entrepreneurship and Management in Bihar, where we will encourage farmers and their generations to diversify their agriculture occupation along into food processing, right? For mega food parks and all other schemes have been in the same direction, right? So first growth engine is agriculture. Lot of schemes and programs specifically targeted along with these areas. Makhana, we also talked about this. A global superfood is what the government has tagged it. This is focusing on production, processing and value addition marketing with respect to Makhana. Makhana board has been set up and that will be in Bihar. Okay, so a lot of Bihar coming in specific to agriculture, right? That's the line. Now, National Mission on High-Yielding Varieties of Seeds, we have seen this specifically to encourage high-yielding varieties of seeds as such. So that's the first growth engine, agriculture. Now let's come to the second growth engine. Second growth engine is MSMEs. Now MSMEs, micro, small, medium enterprises. Okay, let's get to a small story. Large country, India. Where are the industries focused? Urban areas. Where are the jobs coming on? Yes, these industries. But large industries are high technology oriented, employability wise low. India's growth story has a missing secondary sector. Agriculture dependency high, production or contribution to GDP high from the tertiary sector. So where is the weak link? The weak link is the secondary sector. So high amount of investments are required, regional balance is required, one-stop solution for all these problems. For the weak link called secondary sector, for regional balance and also for employability is MSMEs. MSMEs are highly employable. They work on a technology that's largely people friendly. They can be set up anywhere. There's huge government support in terms of Mudra, in terms of SIDBI. So MSMEs are India's story for growth. So that's the second growth engine, which is MSMEs as India's second growth engine after agriculture. ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಂ ಎಂಟರ್ಪ್ರೈಸಸ್. ಸೊ ಸಣ್ಣ ಕೈಗಾರಿಕೆಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಬಳಸ್ತೀವೋ ನಮ್ಮ ಒಂದು ಗ್ರೋತ್ ಸ್ಟೋರಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂತಹ ವೀಕ್ನೆಸ್ ನಾವು ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನೋ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ MSMEs ಮೇಲೆ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಇದೆ. Now, what is the current status check of MSMEs? Let's understand a little data. Now again, all these are data that will help you for your prelims, also mains. Currently, over 1 crore registered, 1 ಕೋಟಿಗೂ ಮೀರಿ registered MSMEs ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿವೆ, employing 7.5 crore people, right? So, close to 7.5 crore people have been employed in MSMEs. They are generating almost 36% of our entire manufacturing. So, MSMEs are contributing more than 33%. So, almost 36% of the manufacturing. They have positioned India as a global manufacturing hub. So, manufacturing related Indiaದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಾದರೂ ಮುಂದುವರಿತಾ ಇದೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ MSMEs have a major contribution and they're responsible for 45% of exports. So imagine, MSMEs require all the boost given that this is this data that, so more than 1 crore, 7.5 crore employment generated, 36% of contribution in manufacturing, 45% of our exports coming in from MSMEs. That's the reason why MSMEs require that boost. And that's why it is the second growth engine. Right, so what have they done? This time, a little data change has been done in terms of what are the categorization of MSMEs. So, their classification of MSMEs in terms of their investment and turnover limits have been changed. Presently, micro, small, medium enterprises, this is in crores as numbers are mentioned. So, 1 crore, 10 lakhs and 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 10 crores and 50 crores was how it was taken. Now, it has been revised into 2.5, 25 and 125. So, in terms of turnover, again there is a revision. This is to bring large number of things into the MSME net so that you can encourage and bring in much more employability as such. This is a data, enhanced investment and turnover limits to support scaling and also large scale spread. That's the idea. That's one major change as part of your second growth engine. Further in the same line, Customized credit cards have been taken into consideration. Rupees 5 lakh limit for micro enterprises registered under Udyam portal. So Udyam portal targets MSME. We have a specific law called MSMED Act. Under the MSMED Act, there are close to 25 areas which are restricted only for MSMEs, which means the large scale corporate industries, the large scale industries cannot do manufacturing in these areas. That's been a benefit also. So you should know some ideas about MSMED Act. Where do you get the data from? Right. Also, yes, MSME ministry is there, but India Yearbook has an exclusive chapter called Industry, where you will get this data specifically, very important from your prelims perspective. Scheme for first-time entrepreneurs, specifically SC and ST women have been taken into consideration. Term loans up to 2 crore for 5 lakh new entrepreneurs. First-time entrepreneurs yaridaro, avrige loans vyavasthe kudanu madidare. This is also the area that is taken into consideration. So, categorization, classification wise, there have been changes. Right, credit cards so that their credit limits can be emphasized upon. For the first time entrepreneurs, there have been assured credit that has been taken into consideration. In the same idea, focus product scheme is one thing that looking at. Like we have production linked incentives or PLI scheme that has become very famous. Similarly, we have encouraged on focus product scheme targeting employment generation, and then we have also worked on focus product scheme for footwear and leather sectors. India, specifically areas of Haryana, of Saharanpur, which is Western Uttar Pradesh, right, Kolhapur, regions of Kanpur and region around in Uttar Pradesh, Haryana, parts of Punjab, we have seen a lot of footwear and leather sectors coming into consideration. These were ancient industrial towns of India. That's where the focus have been. Measures for the toy sector also, so that this is a large market which can create a large scale export also. There again, we are taken into consideration for Made in India brand. So that's it. India wants to become a global toy hub. That's also something we'll see. Support for food processing. Yes, the first growth engine was agriculture. Correlation, the same can set up as MSME. So food processing can become a major support area. That's how you see the interrelation coming in consideration. So second growth engine being MSMEs. National Institute of Food Technology, this again we spoke of, encouraging entrepreneurship and management. Manufacturing mission with respect to clean technology, quality products, future ready workforce, ease of doing business. So look at these 4 terms. Look at the idea. So we are talking of manufacturing mission. That manufacturing mission with the clean technology number 1, quality production number 2, future ready workforce number 3, and all this with respect to ease of doing business, right? So, how is MSMEs a major growth engine? These are 4 target areas that we are looking at. So, this is how we are largely looking at the specifics in terms of your second growth engine. As I said, the next global toy hub should be India. So, India is working on that line. Clusters, skill and sustainable designs. India even today has a large scale import of toys from China. So we see this made in China tags largely. India wants to make use of this open area so that it can become a global toy hub. Again, largely coming from MSME sector. Specific AI, artificial intelligence based powerhouse that India wants to become, more than 500 crore investments coming in this sector. So research and empowering the next generation in this line. Footwear manufacturing hub, footwear and leather industries related. India wants to encourage that. Employment, production and exports. So that again, right, the growth engines. On one side agriculture, then MSMEs, investments and last exports. So all that correlation coming in this same line. Right, startup powerhouse limited to the idea of MSMEs. Now we have also linked them. India wants to encourage more and more startups, again creating more employment in their section. Again, there is a huge allocation of close to 10,000 crores. Empowering first-time entrepreneurs so that there is credit limits and loans that are given into them. So that completes largely the 2 growth engines. 1, agriculture and 2, MSMEs. Now let's take the next 2 growth engines, investment and exports. Investment specifically they have classified into 3 specific investment areas. Which are they? Let's see them. So we have discussed the 2 growth engines now. One is agriculture and the second growth engine being MSMEs. The next 2 growth engines. Third growth engine has a very important focus. It's a very important area for the large country like India, and that's investment. Investment is a necessary growth engine. So how does this growth engine being focused upon? What is that we are working on this area? Investing in 3 specific areas: people, economy and innovation. Right? Remember the first 3 lines that the finance minister spoke about, the Telugu poet talking about, the country is not about the soil, the country is about people. So if you are investing, invest in people. Second, economy. And third, something that India needs on a large scale, that is innovation. So ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಹೂಡಿಕೆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಹೂಡಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಜನರಲ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಹೂಡಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಅರ್ಥವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿ, ಹೂಡಿಕೆಯನ್ನ ನೀವು ಇನೋವೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಿ. This is how the idea has been spoken. Now, the engines taken into consideration, the first in terms of people. Where is that we are looking at people's investment? Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan. Now, this is an area because India faces a large scale issue in terms of malnutrition and the early child care. So, early child care and malnutrition has solution in terms of Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan. Poshan, we know, is a targeted scheme for malnutrition. Poshan 2.0 has been looked at. This is Pradhan Mantri or Prime Minister's overarching scheme for health and nutrition. That's how the full form comes in. So Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan is more for the young adults, as we say, or a very small child, early childhood care and education related. So people investment in this line. Second, expanding the capacity of IITs, so higher education related, we are looking at tertiary sector. Daycare centers in district hospitals, so that can further emphasize Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak scheme. Now, this is to encourage Indian languages. We are talking about digital content available in Indian languages, Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak. Then we have National Centers for Excellence for Skilling. We all know one of the major challenge India faces is skilled population. So, how can we skill? So, National Centers of Excellence for Skilling to be set up. And at last, innovation to be encouraged. We have the idea of Atal Tinkering Labs. Atal Tinkering Labs, the idea of Poshan has all been Niti Aayog related schemes which have been coming in consideration. So, Atal Tinkering Labs are all those which will spark the idea of innovation at a very young age among children. So, investment as the third growth engine, first specific investment is on people. The idea continuing in the same line is Center for Excellence in Artificial Intelligence, so that you can encourage connectivity, broadband connectivity provided in all government, secondary and primary health centers, expansion of medical education further, PM Swanidhi scheme. Now, Swanidhi is specifically for the street vendors, how you can encourage them. Right, Swanidhi, revamped, enhanced loans, so UPI linked credit cards, capacity building as such. So, this is a very important scheme. Welfare of online platform workers through Jan Arogya Yojana, right? So, investment in people has large scale dimensions coming in consideration, along with artificial intelligence, broadband connectivity in secondary schools, medical education, Swanidhi in terms of your street vendors, and online platform for Jan Arogya Yojana. That's investment in people. The second now is investment in economy. ದೇಶದ ಅರ್ಥವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಹೂಡಿಕೆ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ನೀವು ದೇಶದ ಜನಮಾನಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ದೇಶದ ಜನಸಂಖ್ಯೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಅರ್ಥವ್ಯವಸ್ಥೆಯಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಹೂಡಿಕೆ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. ಇನ್ವೆಸ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಇನ್ ಎಕಾನಮಿ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಏರಿಯಾ? ಸಪೋರ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಇನ್ಫ್ರಾಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್. ಎಸ್, state governments require a large scale support. There are many backward states and backward districts. So supporting states for infrastructure. Jal Jeevan Mission. Drinking water is a very, very important area. So drinking water needs to be focused upon. So Jal Jeevan Mission, achieving 100% coverage, mission to be extended till 2028. That's the line. So states with infrastructure and Jal Jeevan Mission. Last, power sector reforms. So focusing on power sector, incentivizing distribution reforms, augmenting intrastate transmission. We know there is a lot of transmission distribution losses, T&D. So that's also the area. Asset monetization plan. Government has been specifically working on this. Large assets of government that can go in for asset monetization can bring in a lot of money which can be invested elsewhere. So asset monetization plan, a target about 10 lakh crore. And last, Urban Challenge Fund. Urban development is something the government is specifically looking at. In that line, the Urban Challenge Fund also comes in. So while you're investing in the economy, we are talking about support to states for infrastructure, Jal Jeevan Mission in terms of Har Ghar Nal, power sector reforms to reduce T&D losses and increase productivity, asset monetization to generate funds for investments, urban challenge specifically as cities as growth hubs, creative redevelopment cities, water and sanitation. These are the three lines. Okay. So specific areas where you're looking at investments in economy. Now continuing the idea of economy, we are looking at maritime development, given India has a large scale maritime border. Nuclear energy mission for Viksit Bharat. For the first time, budget talks about private participation in nuclear energy. India has accepted nuclear energy as a policy. So to ensure there is sustainability, nuclear energy mission for Viksit Bharat, atomic energy acceleration, Udan gets a mention once again. 2014 when the government came in, they talked about Udan. Udan is Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, regional connectivity. Now they have further emphasized on 120 new destinations to carry 4 crore passengers. So faster mobilization, faster exits, which can boost the economy. So on one side, maritime development, second, nuclear mission for a Viksit Bharat, third, Udan gets a regional connectivity mention once again. Future needs of Bihar in terms of greenfield airports, financial support for Western Koshi Canal. Bihar has a specific focus. We all know Bihar is going into elections, but also a very backward state with high potential. Swami, this is a fund specifically in terms of taking in consideration of the medium education idea. So you are taking specific blended finance. That's a fund that we are once again being introduced. That's the area that we are looking at. So this is investment in the economy. Now the third, along with economy, you are looking at it, tourism development. India has a large tourism potential. So you are looking at 50 destinations, streamlined e-visa facilities, skill development programs, performance links incentives, mudra loans taken into ease of travel and connectivity. So these are areas that we are specifically looking in terms of economy. The first growth engine was people. The second growth engine is economy and large scale specs when you are taking in terms of economy as such. The third growth engine is innovation. We all have spoken about this. Niti Aayog specifically emphasized 2015 when Niti Aayog was initiated. One of the major tagline of Niti Aayog was to encourage innovation. That's why we had Atal incubation centers at the tertiary level, Atal tinkering labs at the primary level. So that's where innovation plays a very important role. This time, when the growth engine is spoken about, the third growth engine is about investment, and in there, along with people and economy, the third investment happens on innovation. That's the idea. So Prime Minister Research Fellowship to encourage more and more innovation related ideas. Gene banks for germ blossoms. Gyan Bharat mission, this is to document India's digital repository. That's where Gyan Bharatam mission comes in. Research development innovation related close to 20,000 crore investments. National Geospatial Mission to develop geospatial infrastructure, the idea of geotagging and Gati Shakti that needs to get a boost. So investment on innovation has specific areas that are mentioned and which will have a larger impact. So you see connectivity to agriculture, you see connectivity to science and technology, you also see connectivity to culture in terms of Gyan Bharatam mission, right? So larger focus in terms of investments in innovation also. So yes, the gig economy gets into the touch. So we are looking at revolutionizing the gig economy with some amount of healthcare benefits and also skilling, because India has a large 1 crore gig workers along with Ishram. Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Swanidhi idea is about street vendors and Atmanirbhar Nidhi that we are taking into consideration. Further, Jal Jeevan Mission, we have spoken about how it is ensuring water supply, and that in sense will have a huge health benefit. Piped water supply across all rural households, integrated demand supply management, converged central and state government schemes, creation of local infrastructure for rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge. So it's a holistic idea. Not only drinking water, but also rainwater harvesting and groundwater recharge, helping agriculture as such. That's Jal Jeevan Mission. Okay. Digitizing India, Gyan Bharatam mission that we just spoke about, in terms of close to 1 crore manuscripts will be digitized. That's a huge boost. Technology powered preservation and digital archives that we can establish as we go into the upcoming days. Medical tourism. Tourism has a huge potential in India, and specifically the area of medical tourism. How can we encourage the difference? India has added close to 1.1 lakh medical seats, expansion of medical education, cutting edge medical treatment with world class facilities. So that's the area of medical tourism. When we're talking of a toy hub, we're talking of a leather, footwear and leather industries related hub. We are also talking about a big hub for medical tourism. Look at the vision areas that the budget has focused upon. Okay. Now the last growth engine. We have talked about agriculture, we have talked about investments, we have also spoken about the second growth engine, which was MSMEs. Now the last growth engine, the fourth growth engine, is the idea of exports. Now, yes, India is a developing country, largely import-oriented country. Before reforms, our imports were very large, exports were very less. That's why we also got into balance of payment crisis. But we have learned lessons. LPG reforms have resulted into structural readjustments. India has allowed a lot of foreign investments, a lot of private investments, so exports have risen. Our current account deficit has been under control. We've largely maintained the 2 to 3% idea. Even in COVID times, we have done very well. So, exports is one area that can be very critical for a country like India. ಭಾರತದಂತಹ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ರಫ್ತಿನ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಗಮನ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೆಯುವಂತಹ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗುವಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಾರ್ಯಾಚರಣೆಗಳ ಮೂಲಕ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ನಾವು ಗಮನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಷ್ಟು that will lead to employment generation, domestic manufacturing, import of technology, all that will lead to ground level development here. So exports has a huge potential. The more focus on exports will definitely help the economy. That's why the fourth growth engine is exports. Let's now dive deep into the idea of exports, where all we are trying to focus upon. Let's understand. So exports has a growth engine. We are talking about export promotion mission, exclusive mission, again linked to the support of MSMEs. Bharat Trade Net, specifically the public infrastructure to boost global supply chains. National framework on global capacity centers so that you can encourage and warehousing facility for air cargo. Now exports required a lot of logistics support and human resource support. That's why these areas are an exclusive institutional support on export promotion mission, Bharat Trade Net in terms of logistics, framework for global capacity centers for human resource, and warehousing facility for air cargo, which is again logistics taken into consideration. So when you're looking at the fourth growth engine, these are the areas that are spoken about specific. The reforms now after the fourth growth engine. Let's summarize the four growth engines now. The fourth growth engine was agriculture, largely focusing on Atmanirbharta impulses to the maritime idea and multiple schemes related. The second growth engine was MSMEs, large demand in terms of regional spread, employment generation, and how India can have a definite growth boost. The third growth engine was investments. Investments where? Investments in people, investments in economy, and investments specific to the area here. Now, the fourth growth engine is taking into consideration of exports. And exports, we have looked at exports in terms of logistics, exports in terms of human resource, and larger support, so exports can have a huge growth potential. Now, all this considered towards that path of a Viksit Bharat or ಒಂದು ವಿಕಸಿತವಾದ ದೇಶವನ್ನ ಕಟ್ಟೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನ್ ಪಾತ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ we looked at three things if you remember. First, reforms as a fuel, right? The spirit, the guiding spirit should be inclusivity. And what is the destination? The destination is a sustainable, developed India. So what are the reforms? That's where the focus now comes in. Reforms as the fuel for financial sector and development. So where are we looking at? First, Grameen Credit Score. This is something that they are newly introduced about. Grameen Credit Score framework to serve credit needs of self-help group members, right? Specifically, Karnatakaದಲ್ಲಿ ಈ ಸಾಲದ ಶೂಲಕ್ಕೆ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಚರ್ಚೆಗಳು ನಡೀತಾ ಇವೆ, ಮೈಕ್ರೋ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಚರ್ಚೆ ನಡೀತಾ ಇದೆ. ಈ ಒಂದು ನಿಟ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ತನ್ನ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಸ್ಕೋರ್ ಅಂತ ತರೋಣ. ಹೇಗೆ ನಾವು ಅರ್ಬನ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಲೋನ್ ಬೇಕಾದಾಗ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಸ್ಕೋರ್ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆ ಬೇಸಿಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಲೋನ್ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಒಂದು ಸಪರೇಟ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಸ್ಕೋರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ತಂದು ಗ್ರಾಮೀಣ್ ಕ್ರೆಡಿಟ್ ಸ್ಕೋರ್ ಫ್ರೇಮ್ವರ್ಕ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಎಸ್ಟಾಬ್ಲಿಷ್ಡ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ NAFID to set up a partial credit enhancement facility. So this partial credit enhancement facility can have a definite boost towards encouraging credit availability. Revamped KYC registry so that you are encouraging more and more new data that will be taken in. Rationalized requirements and speedy approvals. Finally, FDI limit to be increased. So specifically in insurance sectors, when you increase the FDI limits, that will have a larger benefit in terms of reforms. So reforms becomes a fuel, financial sector reforms, and also taken into consideration of development areas. So reforms will serve as a definite meal in terms of larger development that we are looking at. Reforms also as fuel in terms of tax and regulatory reforms. Tax related, we have brought a lot of reforms. The finer details of the budget we'll see. They have eliminated BCD, which means basic custom duty on most of the areas so that you can encourage a lot of imports coming in. These imports will be raw material related imports, further which can go back as exports of finished goods. So one of the most used word in the budget part B is BCD, right? BCD is basic customs duty being removed. So tax related, lot of reforms have come. Specifically income tax related, there have been a new scheme of income tax related idea that's come in to encourage more and more tax compliance and also to give boost for middle class consumption. So lot of savings happening which will definitely go back as consumption and boost the economy. So tax related reforms. Second, regulatory reforms. We talked about institutional reforms and regulatory, and also regulatory process reforms, right? Generally in public administration we use this term called regulatory mess. So how do we reduce that mess? The ideas have come in. So reforms on one side, financial sector, on the other side, tax and regulatory reforms also. Reforms as a fuel in tax and regulatory, specifically what are the key initiatives taken? Largely looking at high-level committee has been established with respect to regulatory reforms, investment-friendly index for states. Now, states ಅಲ್ಲಿ competition improvise ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ investment-friendly index has been established. FSDC mechanism, Financial Stability Development Council. So there to evaluate the impact and responsiveness of the schemes, and we are reintroducing this 2.0 version of Jan Vishwas bill. How do we gain trust? We had Vivad se Vishwas scheme, right, which was helping specifically in terms of direct tax related disputes. So Jan Vishwas bill aims to decriminalize close to 100 provisions of various laws related to business friendly environment. So again, encouraging trust building among governance. So trust building in governance is a very, very important area. So reforms related, a high level committee, an index specifically so that states can get into a competitive mode, FSDC mechanism to encourage more and more cooperation, coordination. Jan Vishwas bill will see a 2.0 version. Right? Reforms as a fuel in terms of indirect tax, close to 7 tariff rates have been removed. This is something that I was talking about as BCD, right? Apply not more than one cess or surcharge. So one entity, not more than one cess or surcharge. Apply equivalent cess, maintain effective duty. So these are some finer details, but indirect tax side also there have been reforms that have been initiated. That's the bottom line. Sector specific proposals. Make in India for exemption of LCD, LED so that you can encourage more and more specifics. Promotion of MRO so that there is more than 10 years for ship building in terms of maritime resource. Export promotion duty free in terms of handicrafts. Facilitation also coming in terms of trade. Time limits have been specified. So these are sector specific proposals, not much important, but ideas of how we are spurring reforms as such. Okay. Right. Now, this is something that last year budget specifically spoke about. The 25 years that we are envisioning for the idea of Viksit Bharat, the next 25 years we spoke of as what is Amrit Kal. And since that year, the government also added, or the Prime Minister talked about Sabka Prayas. That's why it was also Kartavya Kal. So every Indian has the responsibility of taking it forward, right? I mean, related once again, the Rajpath was also renamed as Kartavya Path. Okay, so that's the idea that you're talking of, Amrit Kal as Kartavya Kal. So government stands committed, 75th year of Republic, we are talking of Kartavya Kal. So this is something that's linked to the idea of the Viksit Bharat idea that we are putting forward. Further in the same line, governance. So GDP was given a new definition. This is again last year, but I want to link it to this specific because the focus has been on growth. So GDP was retitled also as governance, development and performance, right? So we know it is gross domestic product, but from a governance perspective, the budget can talk about it as governance, development and performance. That's the focus area. So along with GDP, you also want to encourage on governance, development and performance, which is more people centric, which is more transparent, which is more accountable. So citizen first idea, minimum government, maximum governance idea. So that's where this theme of GDP will be successful. So if you are looking at the target of a developed India, ಒಂದು ವಿಕಸಿತವಾದ ದೇಶವಾಗಿ ಭಾರತ ಹೊರಹೊಮ್ಮಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಾದರೆ ನಾವು ಬರೀ ಇನ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಷನಲ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ರೈಟ್ ಜನರ ಕೇಂದ್ರೀಕೃತವಾಗಿರುವಂತಹ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಮಿನಿಮಮ್ ಗವರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಮ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಿಮಮ್ ಗವರ್ನೆನ್ಸ್ ನ ಟಾರ್ಗೆಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ವರ್ಕ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷವೂ ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳಿದೆ, ಈ ವರ್ಷ ತನ್ನ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. Now let's come to the finer sides of the budget. We all know budget, the railway side of the budget was clubbed along. So quick snapshot of the idea, right? Compared to last year and this year, this is last year's data 24-25 in terms of what is the revenues being generated. This is this year's data. We have seen a definite working better. The working results have increased. Gross traffics have increased compared to last year. We have seen rising numbers. One place where I want all of you to hold note is this, that is the railway earnings as such. Freight earnings continues to dominate, right, compared to passenger earnings, though it has been increasing, but compared to passenger earnings, freight earnings are high, which means the goods traffic. Andre, railway earnings alli goods related earnings ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ because the subsidization wise that's been. Vande Bharat and many such ideas have come in terms of railway sector. So in the upcoming years, railway is going to play a major role. Dedicated freight corridors also. So this is a comparative analysis of last year's railway snapshot to this year. Traffic has increased. Revenues have definitely increased. In that sense, things have been working upon specific. The same idea when the interim budget was being pitched in. Forgetting this, if I have to specifically focus, railway related corridors was spoken about. One on energy, mineral and cement corridors. Second on port connectivity and third on high traffic density. I list this again because the idea of rail is not only specific to passenger and good but multimodal transport. India being a large peninsular country having high maritime border, port connectivity corridors can definitely help in terms of railway. So 90% more plus the trade related volume happens to sea route. So how can rail help for exit routes? High traffic density corridors so that there is both passenger and freight traffic coming in. Energy, mineral and cement corridors so that industrialization can get the benefit of railway as such. This is again where last year's budget had focused upon. This year's vision of Viksit Bharat can have a definite boost. That's the line that we are looking at. Railway specifically, these are the areas that we have worked upon along with GDP. We said is governance, development and performance in last year's budget. In the global context, last year's budget, I'm bringing back this again because we are expecting a question this time on that specific line, because last year's budget also spoke about India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor. Given the Israel-Palestine and issues with respect to Ukraine-Russia, this can become a potential question because last year's budget had spoken about this idea. So which are the countries involved in this Middle East Europe economic corridor? What are the specific route that we are talking about? Because we have seen questions in UPSC. Example, ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ question ಬಂದಿದೆ? ನಮ್ಮ ಟ್ರೈಲ್ಯಾಟರಲ್ ಹೈವೇ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಮಯನ್ಮಾರ್, ಥೈಲ್ಯಾಂಡ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಹೈವೇ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿ ನಮ್ಮ IPI ಪೈಪ್ಲೈನ್, ತಾಪಿ ಪೈಪ್ಲೈನ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಅದೇ ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ this is a last year idea but definitely can become a question this year. So you have to be vigilant. Okay? This is part A of the budget. Part A of the budget has large development focus, large schemes and programs, growth engines, Viksit Bharat related idea. Okay. So quick summary when you're looking at, we looked at 6 focus areas, 10 areas of sustainability, 6 areas that we are specifically looking at dimensions of Viksit Bharat, and then we looked at 3 specific reforms as fuel, right? The guiding spirit to be inclusivity and the destination to be Viksit Bharat. 4 growth engines: agriculture, MSMEs, investment where people, economy and area of growth, and last in terms of this last growth engine was the area of agriculture, specific as your MSMEs, investment and last as exports. That's the 4 growth engines that we have seen. We've seen a larger picture in terms of part A of the budget. Quickly now let's get into the part B of the budget, which is the economic fiscal side. Very quickly we'll do a comparative analysis so that we get an idea about how things are. Now here is where you need not remember every number, but largely this will give you an idea about trend. Larger questions in the last 5-6 years in UPSC has been on trend analysis. So in the last few years, in the recent years, anta yav prashnegalu bartave, adak related agi how do you answer? This is the line that we are seeing. So fiscal consolidation, one of the major theme of this year's budget has been fiscal consolidation. Deficit trend analysis bandang na idra ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತೀನಿ. You can see a definite slide in this fiscal deficit, which is good news. It is definite good news. FRBM Act prakara, the target for fiscal deficit was 3% and we are heading in that direction. COVID years we were almost at 9% fiscal deficit and now we are heading in the direction, definite decrease that we are witnessing. It is good. So when I give you a trend analysis of last year to this year, you will get to understand that. So fiscal consolidation growth path has been very good, which is good news for the economy. Now very quickly in terms of numbers, fiscal deficit has been decreasing. Total assets excluding borrowings has also been going good. Total expenditure also has been increasing. So it's good news. Deficit is coming down. Expenditure is increasing apart from the borrowings that you are taking into consideration. Revenues also has been on the rise, so which is good news for the country. Right, budget estimates, when you look at the larger lesson at glance, this is in terms of numbers. Again, as I said, don't remember the numbers, but you see a definite hike in terms of capital and expenditure as such. So that's the line. New tax structure, this is something that's giving a large boost to the middle class, right? So up to 4 lakh, no tax, and then onwards you have split slabs. Till recently, the new tax scheme also had 30% tax for anybody earning more than 15 lakh. Now that number has gone up to 24. So anybody now earning more than 24 will pay 30% tax, which means the slabs have been now revised. This is a major change. I don't see question coming in from this area, but from common man's understanding, you should know what is the change coming, right? So we still retain the old structure or the old regime where exemptions are given. The new regime, you can't have any exemptions or rebates, but there is a new structure that has already come by. This is a huge boost. They've said anybody earning less than 12 lakhs, no tax, which means, right, the no tax cap extends up to 12 lakhs. So any individual earning within 12 lakhs will have zero tax liability. That's a big news, right? This kind of a question can come, right? Please understand, if you are even earning 1,000 rupees more than 12 lakh, you will have slabs coming in. If your earning is within 12 lakhs, that's challenge. Now, analysis will come, right? As per economic survey and understandings, we've already seen this, keeping this tab very high of 12 lakhs, which means can lead to a lot of misappropriation, can lead to a lot of suppression of showing of your income, which can become a major government challenge. But the interesting fact is, even with such new tax structures and so much of tax rebate going, government has officially accounted close to 1 lakh crore being revenue foregone because of this new tax. Idagi kudanu, ee bariya tax revenues alli we are showing a upward tick, which means we are expecting higher tax revenues. That's interesting to watch. We are in the part 2 of the budget, which is the fiscal side and the numbers side. Tax structure wise, increased TDS and TCS thresholds have been presumptive taxation regime for non-residents to increase compliance, exemption on life-saving drugs again to improve affordability. So tax related larger benefits given. So specifically, ee bariya terige ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋದಾಗ, we will see that ಈ ಬಾರಿಯ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಸುದ್ದಿನ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಹೊಸ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ತಂದಿದೆ. ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕಲಿ ಮಿಡಲ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮಧ್ಯಮ ವರ್ಗದ ಜನಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಬೆನಿಫಿಟ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದೆ. ಅಪ್ ಟು 12 ಲಕ್ಷದ ಒಳಗಡೆ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಇದೆ, ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟುವಂತ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ನೋ ಮಾತು ಹೇಳಿದೆ. ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೂ ಸ್ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ಸ್ ನ ತುಂಬಾ ವೆರಿ ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಅಪ್ ಟು 24 ಲಕ್ಷದ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆದಾಯದವರೆಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಿಮಗೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಸ್ಲ್ಯಾಬ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟು 24 ಲಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಮೀರಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆದಾಯವನ್ನ 30% ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆದಾಯ ತೆರಿಗೆಯನ್ನ 30% ಇರಿಸಿದೆ. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಆಗಿ ಕೂಡ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ದಟ್ ದಿ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನೋಡಿ, ಗ್ರಾಸ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಕಳೆದ ಬಾರಿಗಿಂತ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇಟ್ ವಾಸ್ 11.8%, ಈ ಬಾರಿ 100% ಆಫ್ GDP. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಕೂಡ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿದೀವಿ. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಫೋರ್ಗಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಕೂಡ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನೇರ ಮತ್ತು ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಈ ಎರಡನ್ನೂ ಕೂಡ ನೋಡೋದು, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಎರಡನ್ನೂ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ, ರೈಟ್, ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬೀನ್ ಹೈಯರ್. ಇದು ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ವಿಕಸಿತ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಂತ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಇದು ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಸುದ್ದಿ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಆರ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸಿವ್, ರೈಟ್? ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಅರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಕಟ್ಟುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಬೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಪ್ರೋಗ್ರೆಸಿವ್, ಈ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಗುಡ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಬಟ್ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಇರೋದು, ರೈಟ್, ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಬ್ಯಾಡ್, ಬಟ್ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಆರ್ ರಿಗ್ರೆಸಿವ್. ಸೊ ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಟಿವ್ಲಿ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಫೈನ್. That's the line that we're looking at. GST has been a huge bane. We are earning very heavily on GST. That's been a benefit. Okay. Now, quick run through in terms of your expenditure chart. This is one good column that all of you should observe in terms of rupee comes from and rupees goes to. So, comes from andaga we are looking at terms of the revenue that is coming in. Odag barta iruvanthadu. Goes to andaga we are looking in terms of revenue that we are spending out. So in terms of availability, idu kaleda varshakke ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ 24-25 we have seen where has been the higher. The most highest is 27% in terms of revenue. ಅದನ್ನೇ ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ 24%. So ಸಾಲದ ಹೊರೆಯನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. 27% was our borrowing liability. This year we are targeting 24%. Similarly, in terms of taxes, highest is in terms income tax and corporate taxes, so direct taxes are higher, and that's the other side. But here Corporate tax, income tax you see 22%. Now that's an interesting idea. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ, ರೈಟ್, ವೇರಿಯೇಷನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಹಾಗಿದ್ರೂ ಕೂಡ ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ನಾವು ಹೈಯರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ. This is where the money is coming from. Where are we spending? If the highest income earning is in terms of borrowings liabilities, definitely highest payments will happen in interest payments. So this is the area we are looking at as highest interest payments coming in terms. Okay, so that's interesting to watch. 27% to 19%, 24% to 20%. This is where rupee comes in, goes out. Prashne heg barbodu. Where can a question come? Which of the following has the highest revenue coming in, right? Direct taxes, indirect taxes wise. Which is the highest expenditure among the four? That's the idea that you have to see through. Okay, expenditures on separate chart ಮೂಲಕ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡೋಣ. highest expenditure is definitely interest payments. ಅದರ ನಂತರದ ಪರಿಸ್ಥಿತಿ ಕಳೆದ 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ second highest expenditure was always on defense. ಬಟ್ ಕಳೆದ 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳಿಂದ ಈ ಬಾರಿಯೂ ಕೂಡ ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ has always been on capital expenditure. That's specifically listed as transport. That's something that we'll see. So ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅನ್ನ ನೀವು ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಈ ಒಂದು ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ನ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಗಮನಿಸಿ. ರುಪಿ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಆದಾಯ, ರುಪಿ ಗೋಸ್ ಟು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ವ್ಯಯಗಳು, ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಇದು ಆಯ, ಇದು ವ್ಯಯ. ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಯಿಂದ ಆಯವ್ಯಯ ಪತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳೋದು. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಎಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಸೊ ಸಬ್ಸಿಡೀಸ್ಗೆ ನಾವು ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು, ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು, ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು, ಸಬ್ಸಿಡೀಸ್ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನಂತರ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸ್ ಕಮಿಷನ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಸ್ ಆಗ್ಬೋದು, ಅದರ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ದಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಸಿ ದಿ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ಫ್ರಮ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ವಿತ್ ದಟ್ ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ನೌ ಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಟು ದಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಚಾರ್ಟ್. ಓಕೆ, when you look at the expenditure for this year specifically, highest as such coming in ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆಗಿ ಮತ್ತೊಮ್ಮೆ ಕ್ವಿಕ್ಲಿ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ, ರೈಟ್, borrowings has been about 24%, interest payment has been 20%. So these are directly linked because that's where the idea is. Tax wise this has been the incomes coming in. Income tax higher ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಷನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್ ಗಿಂತ. ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಖರ್ಚು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್ has been about 8%. This is this year's data. Okay, so just to specify this year idea. Right, more in terms of percentage, right, borrowings liabilities close to 24%, next highest as income tax 22%, corporation tax has been about 17%. So ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಎಷ್ಟು ಲಕ್ಷ ಕೋಟಿಗಳು ಅಂತ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡಿ, ಬಟ್ ಏನ್ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜಸ್ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಆಗ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ರೇಟ್ ಅರೇಂಜ್ ದಿ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಅಸೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್, ಅರೇಂಜ್ ದಿ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ ಡಿಸೆಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ಡರ್. ಈ ರೀತಿ ಬಂದಾಗ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಏಬಲ್ ಟು ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್. ಸೊ ಬಾರೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಲಯಬಿಲಿಟೀಸ್, ಇನ್ಕಮ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್, ಕಾರ್ಪೊರೇಷನ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸ್, ನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಯು ವಿಲ್ ಸಿ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ GST ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್. GST ಅಂಡ್ ಅದರ್ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಸಾಕಷ್ಟು ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಇದ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಸೇರ್ಕೊಳುತ್ತೆ. ಯೂನಿಯನ್ ಎಕ್ಸೈಸ್ ಡ್ಯೂಟಿ ಇಂದ ಕೂಡ ಇದು ಇಂಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಇದನ್ನ ಇದ್ರ ಜೊತೆ ಕಂಪೇರ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನೀವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ರುಪಿ ಕಮಿಂಗ್ ಫ್ರಮ್. ನಾವು ರುಪಿ ಗೋಸ್ ಟು ಖರ್ಚು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಇಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್. ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಸುಮಾರು 20%, ಸುಮಾರು 20% ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ನಂತರದಲ್ಲಿ ಯು ಆರ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಸೆಂಟ್ರಲ್ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಶೇರ್ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ಯಾಕ್ಸಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪಲ್ ಅದರ್ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಡೇಟಾ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ. ಪರ್ಸೆಂಟೇಜಸ್ ನ ಬೈ ಹಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಆರ್ಡರ್ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. ಆರ್ಡರ್ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡಾಗ ಯಾವುದೇ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಯನ್ನು ನೀವು ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. Quick breakdown in terms of this is directly taken from Hindu, right? Transport gets close to 5 lakh crores, which is a decrease, right? Highest expenditure is about 12 lakh crores, which is about 0.75% increase. Second highest is transport, which is nothing but infrastructure creation and your capital expenditure. Defense has the next highest number, and these are all other areas being spent. So area specific agi ಪ್ಲಸ್ ಅಂಡ್ ಮೈನಸ್ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರಿಂದ ದಿಸ್ ಇಮೇಜ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗಿವ್ ಯು ಅ ಲಾರ್ಜರ್ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಬಜೆಟ್ ಪ್ರಯಾರಿಟೀಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿವೆ, ಯಾವ ಸೆಕ್ಟರ್ ವೈಸ್ ನಾವು ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಇಚ್ಛೆ ಪಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೋದು. ದಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಅಬ್ಸರ್ವ್. ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಟಿವ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್. ಈ ಬಾರಿಗೂ ಕಳೆದ ಬಾರಿಗೂ ಏನ್ ಕಂಪ್ಯಾರಿಟಿವ್ ಅನಾಲಿಸಿಸ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿ. ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಂಡಿಚರ್ ಚಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್, second highest is transport, and transport wise we have seen a further hike. So interest number 1, transport, defense, subsidies. This is how the chart goes on, right? So top 4 ಗೊತ್ತಿದೆ ಸಾಕು, ಲೀಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂದೇನೋ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಟಾಪ್ 4 ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್, ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್, ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್, ಸಬ್ಸಿಡೀಸ್, ಪೆನ್ಷನ್. This is how we are looking at the idea in terms of your expenditure. ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೂ ಈ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೂ ಮೇಜರ್ ಚೇಂಜಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಬಟ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟ್, ಡಿಫೆನ್ಸ್, ಸಬ್ಸಿಡೀಸ್ ನಂತರ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ we are looking at pensions coming in. So that's the idea that you have to observe. Okay, so again the same has been explained in much clearer data in terms. Defense ಮೇಲೆ expenditure ಎಷ್ಟಿದೆ, rural development, home affairs, agriculture, allied activities, health, urban development, IT, telecom, major areas of expenditure from a government perspective, ರೈಟ್. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ಬಜೆಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವುದನ್ನ ಪ್ರಯಾರಿಟಿ ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಅಂತ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟು ಖರ್ಚು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಅಗೇನ್ ಈ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಏರಿಯಾಸ್ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ರೈಟಿಂಗು ಅಥವಾ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಪ್ರಿಲಿಮ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿಗೂ ನೀವು ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಓಕೆ, ಕಾಮರ್ಸ್, ಇಂಡಸ್ಟ್ರಿ, ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ವೆಲ್ಫೇರ್, ಸೈನ್ಸ್ ಡಿಪಾರ್ಟ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್, right, expenditure in major items, defense, rural development, home affairs, agricultural activities as a quick list for you to garner. Key numbers, again this is just for reference, ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ಎರಡು ಸೈಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್, ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನೋ ಬೇಸ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂತ ಆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ರೈಟ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್ ಗುಡ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್. ಎಲ್ಲದರಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಏರಿಕೆ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ನಾವು. ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಪ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾಡ್ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟೆಡ್ 31, ವಿ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ರೀಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟೆಡ್ ಇಟ್ ಟು 30, ಬಟ್ ಈ ಬಾರಿ 34ಕ್ಕೆ ಎಸ್ಟಿಮೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಹೈಕ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ. ಸೊ ದೇರ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸಿಂಗ್ ಟರ್ನ್. ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸಿಂಗ್ ಟರ್ನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ, ರೆವೆನ್ಯೂ ಕ್ಯಾಪಿಟಲ್ ರೆಸಿಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಡಿಕ್ಲೈನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏರಿಳಿತಾ ಇದೆ. ಇಷ್ಟು ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರಾಯ್ತು, ನಂಬರ್ಸ್ ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಇನ್ ಅಬ್ಸಲ್ಯೂಟ್ ನಂಬರ್ಸ್. ಇದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರ್ಬೇಕು. ಈಗ ನಮಗೆ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ? ವೇರ್ ಆರ್ ವಿ ಫಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್? ದೇರ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬಿ ಅ ಡೈರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್, ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಬರ್ಬೋದು. ಸೊ ಆ ಲೈನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಗೇನ್ ಕಂಪೇರಿಂಗ್ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ ಟು ದಿಸ್ ಇಯರ್ 25-26, 24-25, ಈ ಬಾರಿನೂ ಕೂಡ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಬಾರೋಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಬೀನ್ ಆನ್ ದಿ ಹೈಯರ್ ನೋಟ್. ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಅದು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿರೋ ರೀತಿ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಲಕ್ಷ ಕೋಟಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಹಿಯರ್ ದೇ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟಾಕನ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದಿ ನಂಬರ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್. ಸೊ ಎಸ್, ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ಮಾರ್ಕೆಟ್ ಬಾರೋಯಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಹೈಯೆಸ್ಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ದಿ ಏರಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಮಾಲ್ ಸೇವಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದೆ, ಇಲ್ಲೂ ಸೆಕ್ಯೂರಿಟೀಸ್. ಬಟ್ ಇಷ್ಟು ನೆನಪಿದ್ರೆ ಆಯ್ತು, ವಿಚ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಫಾಲೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಆರ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಫಾರ್ ಫಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ, one, market borrowing; second, securities against small savings; third, short term borrowing; and fourth, others, which includes this, right? Drawdown on cash balance has been on the negative turn. So ಈ 4-5 ಐಟಮ್ ನಿಮಗೆ ನೆನಪಿತ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಫೈನಾನ್ಸಿಂಗ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಟಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಏರಿಯಾ ದಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಸಿ. Deficit trends are also important. This is a very, very important idea, right? Please watch upon this. Now, when I'm saying this, I'm telling this is important because there was a time where fiscal deficit has reached 9.2%, right? That's the COVID year of 2021. Okay. Then from then we have seen this downward trend. Last year the target was 5.1. We have revised that down to 4.8, which is good news. Which is a definite good news. ಯಾವುದೇ ಒಂದು ದೇಶದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆಯನ್ನ, ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಸ್ಥಿರತೆಯನ್ನ ನಾವು ಗಮನಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಫೈನಾನ್ಷಿಯಲ್ ಹೆಲ್ತ್, ಅವರ ಹೆಲ್ತ್ ಕಂಡೀಷನ್ ಹೇಗಿದೆ, ದೇಶದ ಆರ್ಥಿಕತೆ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಫಿಸ್ಕಲ್ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ವೆರಿ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್ ಪ್ಯಾರಾಮೀಟರ್. ಅಂಡ್ ದೇರ್ ವಿ ಆರ್ ಸೀಯಿಂಗ್ ಅ ಡಿಕ್ಲೈನಿಂಗ್ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ ಇಸ್ ಗುಡ್ ನ್ಯೂಸ್, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ FRBM targets, fiscal responsibility and budgetary management, FRBM targets ನೋಡಿದಾಗ they are close to this line. So 3% target ಇಟ್ಟಿರ್ತೀವಿ ಫಿಸ್ಕಲ್ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್ಗೆ, we are close to that line. ಈ ಬಾರಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಡೌನ್ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ವಿ 4.4% ಅನ್ನೋ ಐಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ, which is good news. 5.1 ಇಂದ we have revised it down to 4.8, and ಈ ವರ್ಷದ ಟಾರ್ಗೆಟ್ 4.4 ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ, which means we are heading towards the 3% idea, which is definite good news. So fiscal deficit being the highest, then revenue deficit, then the idea of effective revenue deficit and primary deficit. These are the numbers. So comparatively this year, ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಬೇಕಾ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಬಟ್ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಮಾಡಕ್ ಟ್ರೈ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಅನ್ನೋ ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಿಂದ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದಿ ಲೈನ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಒಬ್ಸರ್ವ್. ಓಕೆ, ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಟ್ರೆಂಡ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಡೆಫಿಸಿಟ್. ರಿಸೋರ್ಸ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್, ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೂ ಈ ವರ್ಷಕ್ಕೂ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಸ್ ವೈಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ. ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಸ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆದಷ್ಟು ಕೂಡ ಇಟ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಬೂಸ್ಟ್ ಗ್ರೋತ್. ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತದ ಉದ್ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ದಿ ಐಡಿಯಾ ಆಫ್ ಹೌ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಆರ್ ಟೇಕನ್ ಅಲಾಂಗ್, ಇನ್ಫ್ರಾಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಷನ್ ಇನ್ ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಬಿ ಟೇಕನ್, ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಟು ಬಿ ವರ್ಕ್ಡ್ ಅಲಾಂಗ್. ದಟ್ಸ್ ವೈ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಫರ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸ್ಟೇಟ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾವ್ ಆಲ್ಸೋ ಇನ್ಕ್ರೀಸ್ಡ್ comparatively. Now, reforms in states for Viksit Bharat, this is something the budget specifically spoke about, enabling reforms, 50-year interest-free loans of last year that was pitched into. Now, for us to understand how this larger societal change has come in the social picture, census figures are necessary. Unfortunately, census has been delayed initially due to COVID and then elections and larger pictures as such. So, census will definitely help. That's something that we can expect in the next 1 or 2 years, which definitely will have a large scale impact. Delimitation exercise is pending. Larger census based data will have in evidenced policy making. Ella ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನದಲ್ಲೂ census will have, because demographic changes ನ ಗಮನಿಸೋದಕ್ಕೆ, regional specific growth ನ ನಾವು ಅಡ್ರೆಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ census is necessary. Finally, the idea of when she closed her budget, right, she said, what are the 3 Ds that we are looking at? Democracy, demography and demand. ದೇಶದ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆಗೆ 3Ds has been specifically stressed upon. How strong is a democracy? How vibrant is a demography? And how effectively we are creating demand, because demand will lead to growth. So demography and demand ಅನ್ನೋ 3D ಗಳನ್ನ ಅವರು ಎಂಫಸೈಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. This will be the pillars of a ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತ್ ಜರ್ನಿ. ನಮ್ಮ ವಿಕಸಿತ ಭಾರತದ ಪಯಣಕ್ಕೆ ರೈಟ್ demography and demand, these 3Ds. The new tax regime, proposed measures, all investment, which are the 4 growth engines? Agriculture, right? MSMEs, investments and exports. These 4 growth engines with these 3 areas will definitely boost our path towards a Viksit Bharat. That's how she closed on, right? Again, we have seen finance ministers after finance ministers, be it Chidambaram, be it Nirmala Sitharaman, having used Tirukural written by Thiruvalluvar, a Sangam age text. Right, so definite question anytime, more so known as the Bible of the East in terms of ethics that it comes in, largely ethical, but all the data that it's putting in terms. Look at that. Look at what Tirukural says. Providing good governance primarily involves being responsive. Right, how does it say? It says, just living beings live expecting rains, citizens live expecting good governance. What a beautiful line. ಒಂದು ಎಸ್ಸೆ ಬರಿಬೇಕು ಅಂದಾಗ, ಒಂದು ಎಥಿಕ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ಸರ್ ಬರಿಬೇಕು ಅಂದಾಗ ತಿರುಕುರಳ್ನ ನೀವು ಕೋಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಈ ರೀತಿ ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಮೇಜರ್ ಬೂಸ್ಟ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ದ ಬಜೆಟ್ ಎಂಡ್ಸ್ ವಿತ್ ದೀಸ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್. ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಲಿವ್ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿಂಗ್ ರೇನ್ಸ್, ಬಟ್ ಸಿಟಿಸನ್ಸ್ ಲಿವ್ expecting good governance. And whose responsibility it is to give good governance? It is the government responsibility. So providing good governance involves being what? Responsive. That's why the idea of what? Minimum government, maximum governance. That's the line that we are looking at. So this is the line, Tirukural and Thiruvalluvar, with which we probably will close upon. Large amount of questions that we will take specifically. So put on your questions. We will be able to answer them. Finally, let's give you a quick run through. Now, from the last few years, we have observed government schemes and programs have been very, very important. So, budget ಮೂಲಕ mention ಆಗಿರೋ government schemes, programs ನಾವು list ಮಾಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ. This is almost last 2 to 3 years list, which is an expansive list, right? From Swachh Bharat to Ujjwala to Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, Bharat Shared Repository on Inscriptions. ನೋಡಿ, 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಹಿಂದೆ ಭಾರತ್ ಶ್ರೀ ಅಂತಂದ್ವಿ, ಈ ವರ್ಷ ನಾವೇನಂದ್ವಿ ಜ್ಞಾನ ಭಾರತಂ ಮಿಷನ್ ಅಂತಂದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಆ ರೀತಿ ಹೇಗೆಲ್ಲ ಲಿಂಕ್ಡ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ, ದೀಸ್ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ರೈಟ್ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ದಟ್ ಯು ಶುಡ್ ಫೋಕಸ್ ಅಪಾನ್. ಸುಮಾರು 2-2.5 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಲಿಂಕ್ ಇರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ಸ್ಕೀಮ್ಸ್ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳನ್ನ ನೀವು ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಎಕ್ಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. ವಿ ಶೇರ್ ದಿಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಯು. ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ಅಗೇನ್ ಸಿಕಲ್ ಸೆಲ್ ಅನಿಮಿಯಾ, ಗ್ಲೋಬಲ್ ಹಬ್ ಫಾರ್ ಮಿಲೆಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಟರ್ಮ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಶ್ರೀ ಅನ್ನ, ಪ್ರಧಾನ ಮಂತ್ರಿ ಮತ್ಸ್ಯ ಸಂಪದ, ಅರ್ಬನ್ ಇನ್ಫ್ರಾಸ್ಟ್ರಕ್ಚರ್ ಡೆವಲಪ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಫಂಡ್, ಭಾರತ್ ಶ್ರೀ ಆಸ್ ಸಚ್, ವಿಶ್ವಕರ್ಮ ಕೌಶಲ್ ಸಮ್ಮಾನ್, PM ವಿಕಾಸ್. ಕಳೆದ ವರ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿ ಟಾಕ್ಡ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಮಿಷನ್ ಕರ್ಮಯೋಗಿ, ಜನ್ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್, ವಿವಾದ್ ಸೆ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸ್, ಗ್ರೀನ್ ಹೈಡ್ರೋಜನ್, PM ಪ್ರಣಾಮ್, ಮಿಷ್ಟಿ, ಅಮೃತ್ ಧರೋಹರ್, ದೇಖೋ ಅಪ್ನಾ ದೇಶ್ ಇನ್ ಟೂರಿಸಂ. ಈ ವರ್ಷ ವಾಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಬೀನ್ ಸ್ಪೆಸಿಫಿಕ್ ಆನ್ 2025, right? Dhan Dhanya Krishi and developing agri districts, rural prosperity resilience, Atmanirbharta in pulses, cotton productivity mission, fund of funds for startups, again investments related, focus product schemes with respect to footwear, leather industries, Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan. This is again mission your investments in people, growth engine al bandiddu. Bharatiya Bhasha Pustak, Indian languages encourage ಮಾಡಕ್ಕಿರುವಂತ scheme as such, right? Swanidhi, Jal Jeevan mission, nuclear energy mission for Viksit Bharat, allowing private participation. Udan once again comes back. ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ನೋಡೋದಾದ್ರೆ ಸುಮಾರು 3 ವರ್ಷಗಳ 2 ಬಾರಿ ಉಡಾನ್ ಮೆನ್ಷನ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. Swamihi fund, this is again fund for encouraging. Gene Bank for germplasm, Corps germplasm, National Geospatial Mission, Science and Technology encouraging geotagging, Gyan Bharatam Mission, right? The same idea of digitization of your ancient texts, Jan Vishwas Bill coming back once again. So these are some schemes and programs. So government schemes and programs, ಎಷ್ಟು ಓದಿದ್ರು ಸಾಲಲ್ಲ, right? How much to study? This is a question that always comes. Budget has enough mention. ಇಷ್ಟು schemes, basic information ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Prelims ದೃಷ್ಟಿಕೋನಕ್ಕೆ this should be largely sufficient. And apart from this also, if you get 1 or 2, ನಂದಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಡಿ, ಇಷ್ಟನ್ನು ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಓದ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ, you will have a larger idea that you will build upon. Okay? So this is a larger summary. I'll not say that this is completely sufficient, but I can definitely assure you, ಇಷ್ಟನ್ನ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ, ಬಜೆಟ್ ನ ಇಷ್ಟು ಕಾಂಪ್ರಿಹೆನ್ಸಿವ್ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, be it for prelims or for mains, you have enough fodder to take, right? We can definitely assure you, we'll share this along so that you can make maximum benefit of this, take the maximum benefit. Let the upcoming prelims be great for all of you. Mains also has a lot of information coming in, be it the KPSC mains that is coming up or the prelims and then the UPSC mains. This year's budget has enough fodder to provide. All the very best to all of you. We'll be happy to answer your questions going forward. Any such that you want to take in forward, we'll be happy to help you along. Thank you so much once again. Budget for 25-26 has been something that you'll take in forward. Right, as you aspire, we want to dedicate along with you. Your achievement should be something that we target along. Thank you once again. Thank you so much. Budget 25-26, I hope, has been simplified and gives you a large set of benefit. Thank you.